Right, welcome on in, folks. It is your host, Mike from PA. We are live once again. Will you break down the Diddy charges later today? I just, well, I haven't looked at it at all. I have to admit, I haven't looked at it. Should I try to get a CDL? Do you like driving? You made us watch Israeli ads? Wait, really? I thought the ads were gone. What the fuck? There were 10 of them? Running shoe ads? Oh, I'm so sorry, Chad. I thought all the ads were gone. The Diddy verdict is in already? Wait, okay, hold on. Diddy found not guilty of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking, guilty on both counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. That's probation. The transportation to engage in prostitution charge can carry a sentence of 10 years. What was the specific charge? Like what? I'd have to look it up, but I mean, that's a higher sentence than I thought. All right, hold on. We gotta figure it out. We'll look at it. We'll look at it. As president of the United States, I'm not going to let this communist lunatic destroy New York. Rest assured, I hold all the levers and have all the cards. I'll save New York City and make it hot and great again, just like I did with good old USA. Speaking of America being great, what are we talking about today? All right, we have the Senate has passed on a 50-50 vote with Pence breaking the tie. What I would say is probably the worst law in 40 years. It's rare when you look at a law and you say, if I was trying to destroy a country, what would I do? That's what this law is. It basically hollows out medical care. It's going to kill tens of thousands of people a year. It destroys our funding into education. It destroys so much shit for tax cuts on the rich. It's like, wow, man, thanks. You gave me a couple thousand more dollars a year. I'll put it with the rest. It's actually, I don't even think they believe it at this point. You know what I mean, chat? Like, I don't even think the right wingers think that cutting taxes is going to make the country better. Like, we've been doing it for 40 years, 45 years. And these are the worst 45 years, right? According to them, America's falling off. They've been in control of tax cut policy for 45 years. How does this make sense? You've been doing nothing but cutting taxes and cutting the benefits of the government for 45 years. It's led to massive debt. Like, what are they talking about? It doesn't matter to them if the country gets better. They just want to pay less. Well, if you make the country worse, you're going to make less profit. I don't know if you noticed this, but the private sector unexpectedly lost 33,000 jobs in June, badly missing expectations for a 100,000 increase, ADP says. Private sector hiring unexpectedly contracted in June. It's a potential sign that the economy may not be as sturdy as investors believe. Private sector hiring unexpectedly contracted in June. Payrolls processing firm ADP said Wednesday, in a possible sign that the economy may not be as sturdy as investors believe, as they bid the S&P 500 back up to record territory to end the month. Private payrolls lost 33,000 jobs in June, the first decrease since March 2023. Economists polled by Dow Jones forecast an increase of 100,000 for the month. May job growth figure was revised even lower to just 29,000 jobs added from 37,000. Though layoffs continue to be rare, a hesitancy, and then Microsoft laying off 9,000 employees. The Medicaid cuts will destroy the healthcare system. I honestly don't think it's going to pass. I honest to God don't think it's going to pass. I think we're going to get this situation where a bunch of like Freedom Caucus guys vote it down and then nothing happens and everyone could be like, damn Congress. This is exactly what happened with Obama, where Obama was surrendering on everything the Republicans wanted. And then the far right of the Republican Party like voted it down. And so they ended up not doing it. If you're wrong, we're all going to say Mike was wrong. Here's the thing. Republicans know that their voters use Medicaid more than anyone else. Okay, like they understand that Medicaid basically holds up 90% of red districts. So if they slash Medicaid, they're going to absolutely devastate their own districts to depression level era. Like it'll be, they won't have a fucking hospital. Bipartisan Congressman Fitzpatrick of PA will vote for it. Wow, what a surprise. Good thing the Democrats worked extra hard to defeat Wallace in 2028 Excuse me, 2018. Am I right, chat? Good thing they worked overtime to defeat a progressive champion by less than 1% and keep a bipartisan Republican, quote unquote. But doesn't it go through until 2026? No, maybe they're banking people will just forego. They're going to forego. They can't go to the hospital. If they don't vote to pass it, they'll get excommunicated by Trump. If primaried, it will pass. I honestly don't think that's true. Maybe I'm saying the reason why I doubt it, and it could very well pass. I have low confidence in this opinion. The reason why I doubt it just goes back to materialist analysis. Republicans like to pretend to be for cuts, when in reality they just like to raise the deficit, right? They like to raise the deficit. They'll posture toward cuts, but the only thing they really cut are taxes, and they'll run up the debt. They don't really want to do cuts, because when you do cuts, a whole bunch of people are actually fucked up. And to do something this large is extremely disruptive to the point where regular people are going to feel it, and their districts are going to be horribly affected. I feel like they're going to come up with a way of blocking it just because of that materialist analysis. Now, if it turns out that the Republicans believe that their base is completely captured and will believe anything they say, they'll vote for it. So the question is, how confident are Republicans that their base is fully fooled? Like, how do they feel? Do they think their base just doesn't care about reality at all? If they believe that, they'll do it. If they're worried that people might notice, material reality being horrible for them, they might block it. So this is probably the least confidence I've had, but just logically, this is a terrible bill. It's so extremely ideological and will have such devastating consequences, and nobody thinks it's going to help anything. Reality to Republicans is whatever Trump says it is. Is it though? Like, Trump's approval rating is fucking terrible, and it's getting worse. YouGov just released, he's underwater. He's underwater on every issue, even jobs in the economy. -10 in PA, -10 in Wisconsin, -9 in Georgia, wow, he's positive in Florida. That's amazing. Florida is basically Texas now. Ohio, even Iowa. It's not looking good, man. And things haven't even really collapsed yet. I don't know. Let's see what Bernie says about the bill. Fucking liberal Zionist dipshit.
For joining me. Let me be very clear. Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill, now on the floor of the Senate, is one of the most dangerous pieces of legislation ever brought forth in the modern history of our country. It is a gift to the billionaire class while causing massive pain for working families. Actually, I'm wrong. I shouldn't use the word gift because the billionaires paid for it. This bill is an absolute reflection of a corrupt campaign finance system. The billionaires invest hundreds of millions of dollars in candidates and in elections, and in this bill, this piece of legislation, their investment is paying off. So, what are they getting? Well, the top 1% is receiving $975 billion in tax breaks. Further, and this is really quite unbelievable, the wealthiest 0.2% receive a $211 billion estate tax break. $211 billion for the top 0.2%. In that provision, 99.8% of Americans get zero. Further, large corporations in this bill get a $918 billion tax break. That is what the 1% and the wealthy campaign contributors get. So here's what you get, assuming you're not a billionaire. This bill throws over 16 million people off of the health insurance they have by slashing Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act by over $1.1 trillion. So, $1 trillion in tax breaks for the 1%, $1 trillion in cuts in Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Further, it forces millions of Medicaid recipients to pay a $35 copayment every time they visit a doctor. So what is the impact of all this? What happens when you throw 16 million people off health care, you impose a $35 copayment? Well, what the Yale School of Public Health and the University of Pennsylvania estimate is that if this reconciliation bill is enacted, and it's unbelievable for me to say this, but this is what they are telling us, this is what they have studied, If this bill goes through and all these healthcare cuts take place, over 50,000 Americans will die unnecessarily each and every year. 50,000 Americans. In other words, this bill is a horrific death sentence for low income and working class Americans. Further, if this legislation is enacted, rural hospitals all over the country that are already struggling would be forced to shut down. It would also make massive cuts to community health centers and nursing homes. In other words, this legislation is the most significant attack on the healthcare needs of the American people in the modern history of our country. So, our healthcare system is broken, it's dysfunctional, and they make it even worse. And that's not all. This bill wipes out nutrition assistance for millions of hungry kids at a time when we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of nearly any major nation on earth. This bill will also make it much harder for working class kids to receive the higher education they need by cutting education by some $350 billion. At a time when the planet is struggling with climate change, heat waves now all over the world, this bill decimates investment in energy efficiency and sustainable energies like wind and solar. If you are concerned about how the United States keeps getting into never-ending wars, this bill makes a bad situation even worse by handing out another $150 billion to the Pentagon.
What I love about the money going to the Pentagon is it's just a scam. It's just a fucking scam. It's not actually even making our military stronger. It's just stolen money. Our military is pathetically weak. They bombed Iran with our most advanced weapons, and it seems likely that at the most, it'll take a couple months for Iranians to clear out the tunnel entrance, and that the Cascades are probably fine. Meanwhile, Israel's Tel Aviv was absolutely blanketed by rockets, taking billions of dollars of damage. Like, holy shit.
A 15% increase in an already bloated Pentagon budget. Now, I want to applaud all of the Democrats, every single one of them, who strongly oppose this bill. And I want to congratulate two Republicans, Senators Paul and Senator Tillis, for voting with the Democrats in opposition to proceeding on this bill. But here is something really interesting and quite telling about where the Republican Party is today. When Senator Tillis of North Carolina indicated that he would vote against the bill, he was lambasted on social media by Trump, and he was threatened with a primary. He actually did not do what Trump wanted him to do. Is there anything in this world that is worse than that?
I mean, I gotta say this. Donald Trump should serve as a model for how a left-wing president should serve. Except instead of doing horrible shit that sucks, you should do good things that helps people. And you should have a political chokehold over your legislative party members in Congress. They should be fucking frightened of going against President AOC or President whoever the fuck. It's an absolute joke that Joe Biden didn't even pick up the phone his entire time in office and yell at Joe Manchin. He sucked him off in the Rose Garden. That's it. Meanwhile, he got fucking nothing done. And by the way, almost everything he did pass is going to be revoked. So he was a failure as a president because nothing he did actually resulted in anything positive. He was a total fucking loser.
Today, Senator Tillis announced that he would not seek re-election. So it is pretty clear to me, and I would hope to every American, that the Republican Party of today does not tolerate any independent thought. One might have believed that members of Congress were elected to represent their constituents, to do what they thought right for their constituents. But that's not what it is in the Republican Party right now. The sole function of Republican members of Congress is just to tell Donald Trump how brilliant he is, how infallible he is, how great he is, put up a statue of him on Mount Rushmore. Oh my God. And if any Republican, like Senator Tillis, suggests otherwise, they will be politically destroyed. This is pathetic, and it has all of the hallmarks of the kind of authoritarian society that Trump wants to take us into. Dissent is simply not tolerated anymore within Republican ranks. I don't have to tell anybody that this is an extremely difficult moment in American history. Trump and the oligarchs have unlimited wealth. They have a great deal of power and they want more. But there is something that we have. And we saw that just last week in the recent mayoral primary in New York City. So what you had is one candidate supported by all of the big money interest, all of the oligarchs, but you had the other candidate who was supported by ordinary people. And guess who won? The guy, Mr. Mamdani, who was supported by rank and file New Yorkers, won the election.
Right now,
so I think what we can learn from that is that if
the ICE budget expansion, by the way, if the ICE budget expansion goes in, we will have the American Gestapo. The amount of money being spent means they can hire every Trump flunky to be a fucking Gestapo member.
If we stand together and not let Trump and his friends divide us up based on our religion or where we were born or our sexual orientation or the color of our skin, if we stand together, we can beat the oligarchs. And let me tell you, in this moment in history, that is exactly what we've got to do. Thanks very much.
Anyway, chat, I was just checking on, I just wanted to check on my favorite political commentator and his thoughts on the Zohran Mamdani race. Even if this is just name recognition, things are going to have to change pretty dramatically for this race to be competitive at all. Could easily see Zohran struggling to keep his position as the leading non-Cuomo candidate if these numbers keep up. Anyway, he's always shitting on, he was shitting on Zohran and he's now always shitting on AOC. So it's almost like he doesn't like left-wing candidates. I don't know how, I don't know how this idiot constantly gets promoted by people, but oof. We'll just compare. Obviously, I must have been saying some pretty dumb stuff. What is this, March? Okay, hold on. Let me take a quick look. Let's compare and contrast. Let's just do Zohran from Mike from PA. Let's just eliminate from January 1st of this year to let's do April 1st. Let's see if I was saying anything about him before he was popular. March 27th. Zohran's online media game is great. The reality is the main impediment to grocery stores is a prohibitively expensive rent paid to landlords, adding serious overhead. If Zohran opens city grocery stores on city-owned land, they will be able to compete on price. Zohran has really good happy warrior vibes. I hope this campaign has legs. Zohran is just a really likable guy. This is really great. Zohran seems like a really cool guy. Zohran seems like a really great guy. Zohran wants to change these regulations. Next excuse. I think I was yelling at Yimbys. Huh. Okay, well, it seems like I kind of was right about that. Huh. Well, What about my predictions on Zohran? Yeah. I think you're bad at this, Editor Mentum. I think you should stop. Get a job. Your dedication to going melt mode on this kid is every chance you get. I think he's trying to claim he predicted Zohran was going to win or was like a good candidate or something when actually he was saying he sucks and he's going to lose. As president of the United States, I'm not going to let this guy. Yeah, we already saw this. The rich are mauling over Zohran, and they're right to maul. The House is doing the thing now. Let's take a look. Oh, they're just debating.
Rules. I call up House. Pardon me, Mr. Speaker. For the purpose of debate only, I yield the customary 30 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr.
About your prediction of the bill being passed, you fail to realize that the majority of people do not know what is in the bill. See the pool on Dem messaging on the bill. It's especially true with GOP base because they only get their news from the Trump dick-sucking media. They do not have to vote for the bill. Their base will give them maximum hurt. You understand that there will be consequences for the bill, right? Like, whether or not people know what it is now, they're going to learn in the future and they're not going to like it. This is another lesson that Trump is teaching you about how to be a good president for your party. Now, Donald Trump is a terrible president and his policies are terrible, but you notice how he's rushing this along and he's not giving the Democrats 80 years to add amendments and he's not trying to do bipartisanship. He's just trying to slam it down everybody's throats so fast they don't even know what's happening. You see how that's working really well as a strategy because the opposition isn't coalescing fast enough? You see how she's very clearly, by the way, look at this Zionist fuck. This scumbag fucking bribed piece of shit foreign agent. Jesus Christ.
I raise a point of order against page 1, lines 3 to 5 of the pending amendment, which violates Section 313B1A of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974.
The point of order is sustained. The text will be stricken.
Mr. President,
I don't want Kathy Hochul to pick his replacement, so maybe he should just stay in there like the rotting corpse that he is.
With this legislation, we're fulfilling the mandate we were entrusted with last November and setting our country and the American people up to be safer, stronger, and more prosperous. I look
literally the opposite on, like, none of that is true. Less educated, sicker, with an overexpansive military and law enforcement budget focused on removing immigrants by race, causing racial tension and destroying this country's population growth and ability. This is basically somebody drinking colloidal silver, but in policy form. This is significantly shortening. This is like those goofballs that are drinking colloidal silver and end up turning fucking blue.
forward to the House.
It doesn't even really help. Can I just say this? It doesn't even really help the top 1%. It doesn't even really help them, because when this country is hollowed out, the economy gets worse, the demand for the dollar declines. So their wealth and dollar denominated assets will lose relative value. And then, you know, what's the use of owning property in Los Angeles if it's absolutely crowded with human filth and the homeless and human misery, and you can't go outside without bodyguards, and you have to go from compound to compound because society is falling apart? It actually makes their lives significantly worse. That's what's so ridiculous about these policies. Is like, where are these people living? Isolated in fucking bunkers?
Taking up and passing this historic legislation and getting it to the president's desk.
Today's vote will haunt our Republican colleagues for years to come as the American people see the damage that is done, as hospitals close, as people are laid off, as costs go up, as the debt increases. They will see what our colleagues have done, and they will remember it. And we Democrats will make sure they remember it. The American people will not forget the betrayal that took place today.
Well, I just heard that about the Senate, and the bill just passed, and it tells you there's something for everyone. I mean, it's a great bill. There is something for everyone, and I think it's going to go very nicely in the House. Actually, I think it will be easier in the House than it was in the Senate.
President Trump reacting to the Senate's narrow passage of that massive domestic policy bill yesterday. It now heads back to the House, where hardline conservatives say they have enough votes to sink that legislation. Also ahead this morning, President Trump tours a controversial new migrant detention camp in the middle of the Florida Everglades. We'll have the latest on so-called alligator Alcatraz. Plus, the jury in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial will resume deliberations in just a few hours. After announcing in court yesterday, it reached a partial verdict, with one that's still dangling out there. We'll have legal analysis on what it all means. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Joe. It is Wednesday, July 2nd. I'm Willie Geist. With us, U.S. Special Correspondent for BBC News and host of the Rest is Politics podcast, Katty Kay. Also the host of Way Too Early, Ali Vitale, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and MSNBC political analyst Eugene Robinson, and senior writer for The Dispatch, David Drucker. He's also a Bloomberg columnist. A great panel assembled. Good morning to you all to talk about this.
I actually am cutting this video off because it's not a great panel. I don't care. I want factual information. I don't want these dumb fuck worthless people with no following who are getting propped up by MSNBC because they're shit politics. Fuck you. I just want very, very factual information. There's just this. Honest to God, our news is so fucking terrible.
Dismal polling, multiple warnings of an
worthless
electoral wipeout, and a primary threat from the world's richest man. Well, none of that deterred Senate Republicans from passing Donald Trump's mega bill. In the end, the Senate voted 50-50 to pass the bill. J.D. Vance breaking the tie, 3 Republican senators voting no, and now the bill heads back to the House, where Republicans on both ends of the spectrum have major issues with it. Now, a reminder, the bill guts Medicaid to the tune of $1 trillion, kicks 11.8 million people off their health insurance. Also, the tax cuts can be extended for some of the richest Americans. Not to mention, it turbocharges funding for Trump's mass deportations. It also threatens the fiscal future of this country. The New York Times reporting that the deficits that this bill generates, quote, could begin a seismic shift in the nation's fiscal trajectory and raise the risk of a debt crisis. Those are just some of the reasons both the far-right House Freedom Caucus and moderate blue state Republicans have reservations about the bill, which, by the way, no longer has the Trump branding of the, quote, one big, beautiful bill. Democrats managed to strike that name out during votes this morning. There's also the polling on the legislation. As we reported yesterday, just 29% support the bill in one poll. Even a poll from Donald Trump's favorite network, Fox News, puts approval at 38%. Also puts Republicans between a rock and a hard place between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, Trump's one-time political benefactor. The feud between the two erupting in the last 2 days, with Musk threatening to use his billions to fund a primary challenge to any Republican who votes for the bill. When all is said and done, that would mean that the vast majority of the House and Senate GOP will have crossed Elon Musk's red line. Republicans swallowing a political poison pill in the form of Trump's signature legislation is where we start today with former Democratic Senator and MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill. And here with me in Washington, managing editor of The Bulwark and MSNBC contributor Sam Stein. Sam, talk to me about how this came together in the final hours.
It's kind of remarkable, honestly. We had a incredibly rushed process with a totally arbitrary deadline. In which people were basically adding billions of dollars, taking billions of dollars, crossing out provisions, amending provisions, making changes up into the last moment. And Senate Republican leadership had 4 holdouts, Rand Paul, Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, and Lisa Murkowski. Rand Paul would have moved if they had scrapped the debt ceiling raise in the bill. That was not going to happen because they didn't want to do that because Trump doesn't want to do that. Tom Tillis had already made his position known, and he's retiring now, so that wasn't going to happen. So it came down to basically could they get Susan Collins, who hinted she was very much against the bill, or Lisa Murkowski. And through a series of provisions, basically gifts to Alaska, they got her vote. And what's kind of remarkable about this is that Lisa Murkowski managed to score some provisions to shield her own state from the devastating consequences of this bill in order to vote for it. And she acknowledged that those devastating consequences will now be inflicted on 49 other states. Right. And she said, well, I'm going to try to fix this, and hopefully it comes back to the Senate. In reality, and she knew this, the next step is for the House to just try to...
Have you been noticing that the way the Zionists are talking about defending Israel and their Zionism from complete retreating, back-footed position? They're gotten to the point where they're saying everyone else got to colonize. Why can't we? Yes. They're defeated. Everyone hates them. Everyone normal hates Israel. Everyone normal despises Israel.
Passed what the Senate passed, which means it will never come back to the Senate. And so Murkowski took a plunge. Whether she did it because she felt it was honestly coming back or not is up to her to explain. But I think everyone else other than her knew that this is the last time the Senate will likely get its hands on it.
Claire, I want you to take a stab at what you think Senator Murkowski's calculus was here, but also just more generally what Republicans were thinking in passing legislation that they know is unpopular with the majority of American people.
Yeah, Lisa got stuff for Alaska, and I think she probably got herself in a position where she was saying, I won't vote for it. And they said, well, let's do this for you. Let's do that for you. And she said, well, if you'll do this for me. And I'm betting that they kept giving her everything she asked for. And then she kind of was in a hole. She kept, it would have been like her keep moving the goalposts. I'm not going to make excuses for Lisa Murkowski and what she did. But what about somebody like John Cornyn running in Texas next year? What about somebody like McCormick in Pennsylvania, who barely beat Bob Casey? And there is so much about this bill that is politically toxic, Alicia. I mean, the fact that the mere pittance they're giving on taxes on tips and Social Security, guess what? That goes away immediately after the next presidential election. And then, on the other hand, the tax cuts for billionaires, they're permanent. And the cuts for Medicaid don't happen until after the midterms. So there's so much cynicism in this bill. They are banking so much that people will buy what they're selling, which is a lie. And what's going to happen, there's going to be real devastation, or people are going to feel the pain. And I do believe that the people who voted for this bill will regret it.
AOC is we're going to get a realignment. Like this honest to God feels like the pendulum is picking up terminal fucking velocity.
Tim Miller, your thoughts on this legislation?
Well, I agree with Senator McCaskill there. I almost, boy, that would have been an insult calling you Senator Murkowski there for a second. I agree that certainly the swing district Republicans in the House are going to regret this, as evidenced by the fact that Tom Tillis, who is going to have the toughest race of all the Republicans in the Senate, besides maybe Susan Collins, essentially quit over not wanting to vote for this bill. So, and the bill is a big-time political loser, but the policy ramifications are very severe, and the Senator Murkowski's explanation for voting for this bill is something that it's hard for me to think of other precedents for this, like before this time, where you would have a senator. It's not just her; it's also Josh Hawley and Ron Johnson, who are out there saying essentially that this is a bad bill. Like Hawley's rationale for voting for it is that the Medicaid cuts won't go into place ever, and that he'll fight them in the future. Ron Johnson hasn't even given a rationale for why the bill that he was railing against he's now voted for. Murkowski said in an interview afterwards that she knows this is going to cause pain to people in other states, and it's not as if the Alaska's getting a great deal here. They're just getting a carve out on some of the SNAP reimbursement so that it won't be quite as painful for people on food stamps in the state. That's not a great deal for Alaska. So voting for it just because the Alaska deal is less bad than the rest of the country, when you recognize that it's going to cause...
I just hope all these do-nothing Democrats are in the minority. By the way, look at all these centrist Dems that are on. This is a Republican. This is a fucking Republican. You have the most right-wing Democrat we've had in the Senate, who lost anyway to Josh Hawley, and a fucking Republican. Like, MSNBC is so right-wing. It's incredible, dude. Jesus fucking Christ.
Cause a lot of pain in the rest of the country. That's not even getting into the ICE side of it, the cuts to energy production. The Murkowski rationale for supporting this is extremely befuddling, and there really was no rush. I guess she felt pressured by Thune and maybe President of the United States, but she's bucked him before. So it's a flummoxing decision to pass a bill that so many people who even support it recognize its serious flaws.
So what happens, Sam, now in the House?
Well, bill goes to the House. The House Republican leaders are saying they want to move it tomorrow, which, sometimes you just got to step back and say, what are we doing this for, right? Like, everyone who is voting...
Those billionaires need their tax cuts ASAP.
Those tax cuts aren't expiring tomorrow. You have some time here. The debt ceiling's not being hit tomorrow. But it's to Tim's point, it's like, everyone who's voted for this bill, not everyone, most people who voted for this bill have been like, well, it's really a bad piece of legislation, but, we'll fix it later. Fix it before you pass it, right? Like, it's hard to underscore how much this is so arbitrary. Trump wants to sign a bill with fireworks going off behind him because it's July 4th. That's like literally the entirety of this reason. So they could hit the pause button and say, instead of voting for passage, why don't we get it right and then vote for passage, which is, how you would normally operate.
And he can have his fireworks in July.
You can have your fireworks. Push the fireworks back. We'll allow it this time. You asked what happens next. So it's going to go to the House. House Republican leadership is like, we're going to vote for it tomorrow. What we know now is that a number of House conservatives are publicly saying they don't like what the Senate did because it doesn't abide by the framework that they had passed initially in the House. And by that, I mean, it doesn't cut enough for them. Mike Johnson had made a deal with them. He'd said that the Senate was going to actually cut more. It does not cut enough for them. So they have a choice. They can say, no, we don't like this. We want to revise it and cut it even further, the Senate's version, then send it back to the Senate. But I think we all sort of know that we've seen this before, right? House conservatives.
How many ICE agents can be employed at 45 billion? Just do some back of the envelope math. I mean, I think the entire Pentagon payroll is what, like 200 something million? Pentagon payroll number. Oh my God. Payroll cost. Worthless AI. So it's only 200 billion. 200 billion for the entire Defense Department's personnel related costs. So that's their pay. So, 45 billion for ICE means they're, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of ICE agents. So right now there are 20,000. So they're probably going to 10x it, or at least 5x it. They spend Okay, they spent 9.7 billion for the entire agency right now. They have 21,439 full-time positions. So we could just try to do that ratio and give a good back of the envelope calculation. Okay, so 9.7 billion divided by, let's do 21,439. That says 452,000 per employee. So if we times that by how much is it? Did you say 45 billion? This is very rough, chat. This is very, very rough. We're just estimating. I multiply when I should have divided. Hold on, because we're learning how many agents there are, so I should be dividing. Okay, I'm doing the math. So 199,459 ICE agents, according to my back of the envelope math. That would roughly calculate to 100,000 ICE agents. So they're 5xing ICE. Minimum. It could be more.
When their bluff gets called, they fold. And so I fully expect people like Victoria Sparks, Chip Roy to make a big stink and then ultimately, get some sort of promise down the road that they will address their concerns and then vote to pass.
And the New York Republicans?
The SALT issue, which was the big hang-up for them, is resolved. It actually got resolved with the deal with the Senate. The question is, can they stomach these Medicaid cuts? And Tim's point, can they stomach the clean energy cuts? I've seen nothing really to indicate that they're going to take a firm stand. And the history on them taking a stand is even worse than the history of conservatives taking a stand.
Claire, you have the president saying he wants the House to take up the Senate version of the bill. You think that happens?
Yeah, I think it happens. I can't tell. I mean, I can't take any of these people seriously at this point. I mean, Ron Johnson, and Josh Hawley are two great examples. I mean, Josh Hawley is actually saying, I'm going to work the next 2 years to get the Medicaid cuts out. All he had to do was vote no. That's all he had to do. The bill wouldn't have passed. The Medicaid cuts wouldn't have passed. They would have come back around with something else to try to get the tax cuts for the wealthy. Because let's be honest about this, Alicia. What they care about are the tax cuts for the wealthy, period. They don't care about the deficits. They don't care about the debt. They don't care about health care. They don't care about clean energy and job creation. All they care about, all of this, is in the name of making the tax cuts that Trump did in 2017, which favored the wealthy by enormous margins, permanent. That's what this is all about. And they are willing to bet that the American people won't pay a close enough attention and get mad enough to throw them out of office because they have done this. And I think that the House will pass it. I think they will. I have nothing to tell me that they're going to have any more sense than the Senate just had.
God, when I think MSNBC is bad, it gets so much worse. It gets so much fucking worse every time. Holy shit. Is this new or is this old? Oh, this is from the beginning. Okay, I think we may have already watched that. Huge vibe shift on Israel from CNN polling today. I need to watch something that isn't the Democrats, because I am so willing to support them, but I can't, man. They're so incompetent. They're so stupid. They're so evil. It's crazy.
Mamdani is officially the Democratic nominee for New York City mayor, and he's now facing new attacks from President Trump. The president is now threatening to arrest Mamdani if he blocks immigration arrests in New York City, something that Mamdani has promised to do. But there is a lot more questions about, as he is now continuing to campaign, that Mamdani is also facing continued and serious questions about his stance on Israel. CNN's Harry Anton is joining me now and is running the numbers on this, taking this and looking also more broadly, because it speaks to the broader views in Democratic politics specifically, also speak to what's going on with Mamdani and this race for mayor in New York City.
Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, look, Andrew Cuomo during the primary attacked Mamdani as being insufficiently pro-Israel. I'm not quite sure the former governor understood how much the politics have changed around this issue among Democrats. What are we talking about here? All right, who Democrats sympathize more with, Israelis or Palestinians? In 2017, the Democratic Party was a pro-Israeli party. Look at this. They sympathized with the Israelis by 13 points, more with the Israelis than the Palestinians. But look at this sea change. Now Democrats sympathize more with the Palestinians by 43 points. Oh,
every single Well, I mean, Israel's top guy is Destiny. So online, you know what I mean? Like, Israel's top creator is Destiny. So like, ooh, sex bestie. Ooh. I mean, even pro-Israel people like ContraPoints, they have to hide it.
Oh my God, that is a change in the margin of 56 points over the course of just 8 years. So all of a sudden, it's the pro-Palestinian position that actually reigns supreme in Democratic politics, not the Israeli position. And that is part of the reason why Mamdani was able to do so well in this primary, because those attacks over Israel, simply put, did not ring true for Democrats. They're now on the side of the Palestinians, not the Israelis.
I mean, this is a much bigger issue, specifically with Mamdani, though. I mean, an outspoken critic of Israel. He's facing continued criticism, though, for not being outspoken enough against anti-Semitism, that is for sure. But on this, what is it? Talk about Democrats and how broadly how this really is shifting.
Yeah, so, you see this among Democrats overall, right? But we know that Mamdani's base was younger voters within the Democratic Party. And so I want to break it down
with younger Democrats.
Correct. So take a look here. Who age 18 to 49 Democrats sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Again, in 2017, younger Democrats.
Notice the fascism occurring, and they're all talking about Zohran, because we are the only thing that actually represents change. I've been saying this for years and years, and it's finally becoming apparent even to the dumb people that the centrist Democrats and Republicans are on the same team. Just like the Center Party was in Nazi Germany, when the rubber was meeting the road and they were asking the question of should we give absolute power to Hitler, liberals said yes in Germany. It was only socialists and social democrats and communists who said no. The communist representatives were kidnapped off the street before they could even vote, and only half of the socialists were able to even get into the chamber to vote no. Everyone else voted yes. All the liberals, all the conservatives, allied with the fascists. And you're seeing it happening right now. Zohran, I mean, I want to show you something, chat, which is so unbelievable. Look at the voter registration curve for Zohran during the primary. This is what Democrats got voter registration in 2021 for the mayor's race. Look at the voters registration curve for Zohran this year. There is no question. And like, I think it's time for us to start calling out people like Harry Sisson and Olivia Giuliana and all the supposed Gen Z Democrat whisperers. They're dead silent on Zohran Mamdani because they serve the interests of billionaires. They don't matter as far as where regular young people actually are. And this is look at this. And the Democrats don't want this. I want you to understand, the Democrats don't want this. They don't want young people showing up and voting. They don't want you to blow out the conservatives and the moderates. They're against it. They want Republicans to do well. That's why we need change. If I hear the word bipartisanship, that person should never be electable. You're going to be bipartisan with fascism? You're going to be bipartisan with ICE? Kidnapping people off the street? What are you bipartisan with? Who's the good Republican? Name names. Tell me who the good Republican is. They don't exist. So anybody saying bipartisan, that should be fundamentally disqualifying as a Democrat in this moment. This isn't 20 years ago. Fascism is alive and on the streets. We need to be fighting against the Republican Party, and we need to draw clean lines in the sand to show them that we are 65 or 70% of the country. If you are sitting back going like, well, I don't know, I think we got to work around the aisle. This is exactly what a strong Republican Party looks like.
Democrats sympathize more with the Israelis by 14 points. Look at this shift now. Palestinians, they sympathize more with the Palestinians by 57 points. That is an over 70-point shift in the margin in just a matter of 8 years. So the bottom line is, Mamdani's base within the Democratic Party and the base of the Democratic Party of younger voters, younger Democrats, have changed tremendously on this issue in 8 years' time. I rarely ever see shifts like this, Kate, in which you see one side of the equation leading by 14 points 8 years ago, and then all of a sudden the other side of the equation leading by 57 points. The bottom line is the politics around the Israelis and the Palestinians have shifted tremendously among Democrats, and they've shifted specifically tremendously among Democrats who are under the age of 50, younger Democrats who are Mamdani's base, and also the base of Democratic socialists like himself, like Bernie Sanders, like AOC. They have just shifted more so than I think that anyone could possibly have imagined, say, 8 years ago.
Yeah. Harry, thank you so much, taking a real closer look at Democratic politics and how you're seeing that shift transition. It's good to see you. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
John.
Right with us now, Axios senior contributor Margaret Talev and Spectrum News political anchor and host of the Big Deal podcast, Errol Lewis. I want to take a tangent to that discussion right there. I still want to talk about Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee to be mayor of New York City, but I want to focus on a little bit of an exchange he has had with President Trump, because President Trump yesterday was asked what would happen if Mamdani stood in the way of ICE arresting undocumented immigrants or apprehending undocumented immigrants in New York City. I want you to hear what the president said and threatened, and then I want you to hear the response from the Democratic nominee for mayor.
We'll have to arrest him. A lot of people are saying he's here illegally. He's, we're going to look at everything.
What we're seeing in President Trump's rhetoric is an attempt to focus on who I am, where I'm from, what I look like, how I sound, as opposed to what I'm actually fighting for. Because to do so would be to display the stark contrast in our sincerity and actually delivering for the very working people.
Wow, CNN going and showing that it's over on Israel for Democrats. It's over on Israel. If you know somebody who supported Zionism or supported Israel, they need to be persona non grata forever. Forever. Never can run for anything, never can hold elected office, never can win a primary. It needs to be over forever until they spend decades working to fix the harms that happen to Palestinians. Like literally, if they went to Gaza and built houses for 20 years, then they can atone. But short of that, fuck them.
Been left behind by our politics.
It just so happens that that interview that you saw with Zohran Mamdani was conducted by Errol Lewis, part of an extensive discussion last night. So, Errol, what do you make of the back and forth here and how each of those two gentlemen are positioning themselves?
Well, John, good morning. As is often the case, what we have is a Republican who wants to beat up on a Democrat and sort of demonize him and use it to rally the Republican base and raise money and do all kinds of things. And frankly, Zohran Mamdani can kind of do the same thing in the opposite direction. Donald Trump is very unpopular in New York City. He lost New York City twice when he ran for president, even though this is his hometown. And Zohran Mamdani is aware of that. And it never hurts a Democrat to bash Donald Trump. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that going back and forth as each tries to exploit the political vulnerabilities of their adversary.
Margaret, it sounds like what Errol's saying is you have a president who wants to bash a Democratic candidate and a Democratic candidate who wants to be bashed by the president, in a way.
And to Errol's point, they do both get something political out of it. There's another trend developing, too, where we're seeing the president talk more and more about this idea of forcing denaturalization, trying to really test the limits of what he can do as the executive in terms of the immigration status or the citizen status of people who were born in other countries, became U.S. citizens, did the things that, are so often talked about as playing by the rules. You wait your turn, you study what it means to be an American, you take the citizenship test, you do all the right things, you become a citizen. And increasingly now, he and the Justice Department are talking about increasing denaturalization for naturalized citizens who, in some ways, are seen to have sort of betrayed U.S. ideals. And
that's called political persecution, you cowardly ass bitch. Political persecution. He's going to deny people citizenship based on political views and use the state to denaturalize people based on their views. That's called political persecution. Use the words, you weak, boring loser.
And right now, this is to some.
ICE are going after undocumented people, Mike. It's that simple. Nor are they Nazis. Don't exaggerate it, Mike. It looks you look like an idiot. They're not going after undocumented. They're going after documented people, you fucking dumbass. They literally kidnapped an American permanent resident who's married to an American citizen with a green card, who has American children, and put them in a camp in Louisiana for 3 months because of his political views. Dumbass. That has nothing to do with illegal immigrants, dumb fuck. Shut the fuck up. You're stupid. They just deported an American who was born on a military base in Germany. They denied him his citizenship and deported him to a country he's never been to, he has no connection to. They just did it. So now every child of an American service member who is born abroad has to worry about their citizenship, you fucking dumbass. Here they are. ICE arrests of U.S. military veterans and their relatives are on the rise. A country that I fought for. This is Asmongold. By the way, don't come in here and make arguments like you care about politics. You don't fucking care. It's funny. People are suffering. It's funny. Ha ha. It's funny how they're suffering. Man, look how mad you're getting that people are being hurt. It's so funny. Please, please, please. Like, just stop, man. Just stop. Just be cruel. See if you can hurt people's feelings by being cruel and showing them how you're such a badass. You don't care about anything. Pathetic.
To some extent rhetoric, but we have actually seen a huge uptick since the beginning of the first Trump administration, since 2017, in the number of cases being discussed for denaturalization. You saw him sort of float this as a threat against Elon Musk, who, of course, is originally from South Africa, when now that he is tangling again with the president. So I'd keep an eye on that also.
That's a really interesting point, the comparison between Elon Musk and Zohran Mamdani and the mutual threats made against each of them there. Errol, just one more point on Mamdani. You know, for all the differences between him and President Trump, there's also some really interesting similarities in the way that they campaign.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, both of them focused on affordability with an almost obsessive focus. And it's really very interesting. We're looking at the numbers. We just are getting preliminary numbers, but there are some Trump Mamdani voters out there. We've identified some areas of New York City where they went for Trump just a few months ago, and now they're voting for Zohran Mamdani. And it's a wake-up call, really, to both parties, that something that will go beyond any other kind of traditional political consideration is that gnawing feeling of not being able to pay your bills on a daily basis. The voters have signaled every way they possibly could that will override almost every other consideration, and politicians ignore that reality at their peril.
Margaret, I want you to weigh in on this, but also I want you to weigh in on this new social media post from President Trump on this huge bill that could get a vote in the House today. He talks about growth and everything else, but he also issues a little bit of a threat here. He said, Republicans, don't let the radical left Democrats push you around. We've got all the cards, he says. What jumps out to you there?
That line actually jumps out to me when I saw that tweet, or whatever we're calling that, is the idea that this really goes to his state of mind. He's saying, I'm controlling the levers now. I'm the president. I'm in control of Congress. And right now, he's got a Supreme Court that's delivering several favorable 6-3 rulings in terms of bolstering his ability to use executive power, and the federal district court judges' constraints in being able to push back on it more broadly than case by case.
You have to understand something, chat, that these people are insulated from the consequences of their actions, right? Like, they're not here because of merit. Like, nobody cares about these people. They purely have attention from institutions. They have no merit. And so because they are powerful within these institutions, they feel insulated, but they're wrong. They're not. But I can tell you, chat.
But I think that this argument about growth is a bit of a preview for what we're going to see once the bill, formerly known as the Big Beautiful Bill, gets final passage. And this really turns into a 2026 midterm messaging contest. You're going to see Democrats talk about the reality that over the next decade, this is going to strip healthcare coverage for millions of underinsured people. But you're going to see President Trump try to make the case that overall this will fuel his growth plans. Never mind the ballooning debt. Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. So this is the messaging battle that's shaping up, and we're starting to see the contours of it today, even before the final passage.
Margaret Errol, great to see you both this morning. Thank you so much.
I just legitimately, and I mean this with my whole heart. How the fuck are the Democrats this pathetic? It's actually shocking how pathetic they are. Just when I think they can't get more pathetic.
So you think you know Wix, but do you?
Just when I think they can't get more pathetic, they do. Chrome also being just like collapsing into forcing ads down your throat and deactivating all the ad blockers is like perfect timing for how this country is just worse in every way.
This morning, President Trump wasting no time taking aim at the now official Democratic nominee for New York City mayor.
Day one of Zohran Mamdani's campaign met with threats of arrest and deportation. Pix 11's Kirsten Cole joining us live here in the studio with more on this. Kirsten, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. And we've heard similar threats from President Trump previously. Now they're leveled at him. Mamdani is not shy about taunting the president in response in this moment, releasing his very first campaign video. He's talking about how people who voted for Trump in the recent election now voted for him in the Democratic primary, a shift in support as the president now threatening to withhold even more money in New York City. Zohran Mamdani, officially named the Democratic nominee after 3 rounds of ranked choice voting. Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, besting Andrew Cuomo 56% to 44%. And that win puts him in the crosshairs of President Trump, who's now incorrectly labeling the nominee a communist, and went on to issue a threat to Mamdani. He'll have him arrested if he's elected and interferes with ICE agents, then using another by now familiar tactic, calling into question Mamdani's legal naturalization status. He's been a citizen since 2018. He then called Mayor Eric Adams a good independent.
Those voters came back. Brighton Beach went for Trump by 44 points. Last week, we won it by 16.
President Trump also referenced money that's earmarked for the city, mostly for education and services for the poor. He's previously withheld funds to New York State and even pulled money paid to New York City back out of its coffers. Dan Cassino, a political scientist at Fairleigh Dickinson University, saying we could see more of that.
The city is still getting, think about $7 billion a year in direct transfers from the federal government. And almost all of that is for education and services for the poor. We should say all of this, saying, well, if I don't like your mayor, I'm going to cut, spending that's been allocated by Congress and passed by Congress. That is all illegal. You're not allowed to do that at all.
Mamdani responding in a statement, the president of the United States just threatened to have me arrested, stripped of my citizenship, put in a detention camp, and deported. Not because I've broken any law, but because I will refuse to let ICE terrorize our city. We will not accept this intimidation. And just on Monday, we saw the power of the purse at play. More money withholding tactics. The Education Department federally notifying states that $7 billion in money already approved by Congress would not be distributed. It was meant to pay for after-school and summer programming, as well as support for students learning English. Another example of how the executive branch is using funding to push its own agenda.
Notice how they omit the rest of the statement that talks about Adams and Trump? Yes, of course. They're doing propaganda for Adams because, again, they hate the left more than fascism. Holy hell. And look at this concentration camp they're building in Florida. It's already flooding. Flooding on the electrical cords. Tesla reports 14% decline in vehicle deliveries, marking second straight year-over-year drop. Tesla reported 384,000 vehicle deliveries in the second quarter, a 14% decline from a year ago, and a second straight year-over-year decline. Tesla shares are down 26% so far this year as of Tuesday's close, the worst performance among tech megacaps, up 4.5% today on the horrifyingly bad news. The bubble in American stocks is absolutely incredible. Stock market just infinitely bubbles. The US dollar is crashing. Wow. Dollar is eating shit against the euro.
On this point of tax on tips, as one of the only people in this body who has lived off of tips, I want to tell you a little bit about the scam of that tax, a little bit of the fine print there. The cap on that is $25,000. While you're jacking up taxes on people who make less than $50,000 across the United States, while taking away their SNAP, while taking away their Medicaid, while kicking them off of the ACA and their health care extensions. So if you're at home and you're living off tips, you do the math. Is that worth it to you? Losing all your health care, not able to feed your babies, not being able to put a diaper on their bottom in exchange for what? This bill is a deal with the devil. It explodes our national debt. It militarizes our entire economy, and it strips away health care and basic dignity of the American people for what? To give Elon Musk a tax break and billionaires the greedy taking of our nation. We cannot stand for it, and we will not support it. You should be ashamed.
All right, chat. The grocery billionaire from New York City went on Fox Business yesterday to talk about Zohran. Let's have a little bit of hogwatch.
And himself is here. He's sitting next to me in New York City. He just mentioned you. What's your response? You're a billionaire.
My response is that it takes people that are wealthy in New York to maintain the museums, maintain the hospitals. And
it takes people wealthy in New York to maintain the museum and the hospitals.
And you know how much money these people we put up to contribute towards museums and hospitals and everything, and we create.
They do so they can A, have their name on the things, and B, get special treatment at hospitals. Like if you're a major trustee to a hospital, they will triage your hangnail higher than somebody else's heart attack. That's what they pay for.
Jobs. We have the vision to create the jobs for everybody else. Now, I've seen this movie before, Stuart. I was in Havana in 1990s, and Fidel Castro built a new church for us, for the Greek Orthodox Church, and the people are starving. Everything that Zoltan or Zohran or whatever his name is,
Mamdani.
Zoltan? By the way, chat, in case you're wondering if billionaires are intelligent,
is saying that's Fidel Castro all over again. He promised his people everything. He promised that the world's going to shine for the sun's going to shine for the rest of the century. And guess what? They're starving to death. And the same thing happened with Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. Venezuela was the richest country in South America. Now it's the poorest country in South America. So I look at him as a Fidel Castro wannabe. He has a great voice. He has a great smile.
Yes.
But it's a con game.
But you'll never get that far.
But it's a con game.
Okay, answer with this one.
I absolutely love this is the politics they're going with. You're going to have an obese, inarticulate dipshit billionaire go on television and tell you not to support the charismatic, attractive guy who cares about regular people. I've never been more vindicated in my life. This is how they're responding to a strong progressive candidate. Oh my God, we're going to win 80% of the vote.
I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win and be the next mayor of New York, but he won't be able
thank God we got Donald Trump as president.
But he won't be able to do
he'll
what he wants
oversee
to
it.
do. But he won't be able to raise
This is who the Democrats are defending, by the way. They love the billionaires.
Taxes were at that position of Albany. He can't afford to put $70 billion into housing or childcare.
Let me tell you something.
Look at the money.
I talked to all the condo owners, all the apartment owners, all the homeowners. If he wins, your homes are worth 50%. How much? Downtown Venezuela, how much your homes are worth?
All right.
Okay.
He says billionaires should not exist. Well, New York's got, I think, 123 billionaires with a combined wealth of $759 billion. Are they going to leave?
Let me tell you something. If he wins, everybody's going to scratch their head about it. But we're not going to let him win because common sense. Trump saved America.
Buses cost $700 million, by the way. Free buses, $700 million.
Trump saved the free world. God helped him. God was there when that shot went out. And God...
This is who the Democrats want to defend. This is who the Democrats are trying to get tax cuts for. Amazing.
God will help New York.
Look, Mamdani.
You saying it right?
I think I am.
You'll criticize.
I want to make sure I've got it. Mamdani.
I call him.
He's got the youth vote.
Fidel Castro wannabe.
Okay. He's got the youth vote. He's got the progressive vote, and he's got the Muslim vote, which is significant in New York City. He's going to win.
Well, let's look at who is Mamdani. And I asked the people in Washington. They said they should find out who is he, where did he come from. Who is he? Did he pledge allegiance to America when he signed up to be a citizen of the United States? Okay.
Presume he did.
Let's find out.
All right.
Because I don't think he's loyal to the United States right now.
Okay, we'll take that up later. John Katsoutides, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
He is an absolute cartoon billionaire.
Okay.
Like he's right out of the 19th century cartoons. Like look at this shit. He's this guy. He's literally this guy. Dude, these are some banger cartoons, by the way. Like this one's really good. You have two capitalists like twisting the working class. Yo, this is a banger cartoon. What the fuck? Here he is. They're debating the bill.
Medicaid
Hold on.
cuts and any cuts to SNAP.
North Carolina.
Mr. Speaker, all time yield is for the purpose of debate. I do not yield for that request.
Chair understands that the gentlelady from North Carolina is not yielded for that purpose. Therefore, the unanimous consent request cannot be entertained.
This is Stephen Chung, Trump's director of communications. He's Trump's official presidential troll and helps him develop and spread insults and rants on social media accounts. What? I'm sorry, I'm just in awe. I'm in shock. This is who you're debating with online. This is a person who is a Asmongold supporter or Destiny fan, which still exists. They still do exist. There are a few of them out there. Although I did hear he was like under 1,000 viewers on Kick now. Is that true? Is Destiny like under 1,000 viewers on Kick? It's so funny how he's such a dumb fuck. Holy fuck, is he stupid? Holy shit. Okay, let's keep going. Israel was supposed to sink Zohran Mamdani. Will the Democratic Party absorb the lesson? Oh my God, look at him. He's so fucking cool, dude. This is him, Zohran, at a Jewish Voice for Peace protest with Jabari Brisport, who is a state senator and another candidate that we should be promoting for Congress. Not in our name. Stop arming Israel. On November 15, 2024, Zohran Mamdani released a video of himself interviewing people on the street in Queens and Bronx who had voted for Trump. It was one of the first viral posts that propelled him into the spotlight. It ultimately helped him all but capture the Democratic nomination for mayor of New York. Then, polling close to 0%, Mamdani seemed more like a local news anchor than a candidate, gamely thrusting a microphone in the faces of voters and letting them take the stage. In a city with... Once again, voters punished the Democratic Party for its inability to address those issues, coming out in droves for the most undemocratic candidate in the field. A socialist, in fact. It was not supposed to happen this way, not in a city with nearly 1 million Jews. If he can win in New York, there's not one city in America that this politics is bad for. I mean, seriously, if being anti-Israel is going to cause Jews to hate you, he should not have been able to win. And the reality is that being anti-Israel is not being anti-Jewish, which obviously. So if he could win in New York, we can win anywhere. So the justification for Kamala Harris's inability to stand up to Israel's crimes has been completely wiped out. Mamdani's opponents predicted that his positions on Israel, his reluctance to affirm its right to define itself as a Jewish state, his refusal to condemn the slogan globalize the Intifada, his assertion that Benjamin Netanyahu should be arrested as an indicted war criminal if he visits New York, all nearly unheard of for a Democratic primary candidate, would sink him. What's curious is that while panicked Democrats are now conceding, oh, fuck, sure, I totally forgot. Let's do it. All right, chat. I forgot that I scheduled this. Michael Burns, the other Michael, is coming on in an hour from formerly of, I totally forgot. Whoops. Whoops. All right. I'll have to send him, formerly of Wisecrack. What's curious is that while panicked Democrats are now conceding that Mamdani crushed his principal rival, the establishment favorite Andrew Cuomo, by underscoring pocketbook issues, running a galvanic campaign both on social media and IRL, and not being running a galvanic campaign both on social media and IRL, and not being an alleged sexual harasser and all-around goon, they have yet to reckon with the fact that voters, particularly young voters, were drawn to Mamdani and supported him fervently because of his steadfast opposition to the war in Gaza. Publicly, at least, the Democrats have yet to acknowledge the enormous, perhaps irreparable toll their support for the war has taken on their party. Mamdani outperformed expectations in nearly every demographic, and we still don't have the full data, chat. When we get the full data next week, I'm going to be doing a deep dive I'm going to be doing a deep dive on exactly each demographic and how much better he performed than the media is saying. It's a lie. That's also Claire Valdez on the photo, another DSA member in the Queens Assembly District 37. DSA reps winning. His campaign was nevertheless powered by an overwhelming show of force from the same voters who reside in what strategist Michael Lang in the New York Times playfully called the Commie Corridor, a stretch of gentrified Brooklyn and Queens that includes Ridgewood, Bushwick, and East Williamsburg. And these voters, as anyone in New York with an Instagram account can attest, are vocal about their opposition to the appalling atrocities Israel has committed in Gaza, as are the Muslim voters who Mamdani also unlocked. But no matter how hard Mamdani tried to focus on his proposals for free bus rides and free childcare, Gaza was everywhere in the primary, principally because his Democratic opponents, as well as financial elites who stand behind them, and sympathetic media outlets thought they could use his positions on Israel to turn Jewish voters against him. And they fucking failed. So how would you rate Chuck Schumer's job performance as he describes the job keeping left pro-Israel? That's a really good point. Shut up, bitch. But voters in the city with the most Jews outside Tel Aviv simply do not buy the notion that Mamdani is an anti-Semite who would discriminate against or fail to protect them. In fact, it's clear that many Democrats, including many Jewish Democrats, voted for him because of his positions on Israel, or at the very least saw very little objectionable about them. I am not writing this on October 8th. It's June 25th, 2025. And if we do not change our perspective with time and events and evidence, we are living with our heads in the sand. Nearly 70% of Democrats now have an unfavorable view of Israel. Yet Democratic officials carry on as if full-throated support for Israel were party doctrine. An article in Politico about the lessons Democrats are drawing from Cuomo's defeat did not contain a single mention of Gaza or Israel, titled Mamdani's Surprise Win. Was it a surprise? The evidence was clear. Are you willing to Schumer, if he gets primaried, will lose. Unless there's some sort of like horrible scandal that comes out to the candidate who runs against him, but he's fucked. The article's admission suggests there are no pro-Palestinian factions to speak of. Instead, Democrats have been more than happy to jump on a much safer affordability train, as House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries declared with his usual dead-eyed delivery. I think that's what's clear is a relentless focus on affordability had great appeal all across the city of New York. By the way, notice that affordability is stripped of all content, right? They're not talking about rent freezes or free buses. They're talking about affordability, which is a squishy nothing. Just like abundance, it means nothing because it promises nothing. It is a vague platitude. And people are tired of platitudes. They want promises, concrete promises they can measure to see if you delivered. We don't want hope and change. We want housing and college. Democrats have an odd habit of tuning out their supporters even when those supporters are practically... odd habit, you don't say. In the past presidential election, New Yorkers were hollering at them about inflation, but also inflation and crime. But also immigration and crime. Democrats did eventually acknowledge they've been weak on those issues, which plays their... What do you mean? This isn't even true. They just lost the dumb media narrative, and there was no counterbalance. Because Democrats refused to be bold on any issues, the Republicans were allowed to talk about their issues, and the Democrats did nothing but lose. Because they didn't have any bold plans of their own, they were forced to be talking about the bold plans of the opposition, and therefore they were defeated. The Democrats remain indifferent to any pleas about Gaza in ways that appear to be alienating to voters, especially young ones on the left side of the spectrum who simply do not understand why the party that supposedly represents them is constantly bowing and scraping before a murderous regime. Never was this more apparent than after Trump's strike on Iran, which many Democrats, including Jeffries and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, refused to condemn, despite the fact that Trump did not get the required congressional approval. In an instant, the pro-democracy, anti-authoritarian coalition revealed itself to be an illusion because liberal Iran hawks and their never-Trump allies view the demise of Israel's sworn enemy as more important than placing a check on a demagogue they long warned had too much power. Exactly. They don't care about that. They want their donors to be happy. The constant principled thing to do would have been to oppose the strike outright, but Democrats like Anthony Blinken and Steny Hoyer instead offered toothless criticisms of Trump's brazen warmongering while cheering on the strikes anyway. To please whom, you ask? Nearly 80% of Democrats oppose them. But more loudly than ever, Democratic voters of the country's most formidable Democratic stronghold have declared their opposition to the seemingly unbreakable bond between the Democratic political class and the current Israeli regime. When given a choice between Israel and Palestine, Democratic voters broke hard for the alternative to the status quo, raising the possibility of primary debates over this issue throughout the country in places with far fewer emotional and political ties to Israel. Some people have compared Mamdani to Barack Obama. They're the complete opposite. Barack Obama is an unprincipled narcissist who only cares about gratifying his own ego. And Mamdani is a principled socialist who cares about policy and is willing to speak charismatically and confidently in favor of them, bravely resist tremendous pressure to change. They are nothing alike. In fact, you could say Mamdani is the anti-Obama. He gave people a reason to believe in liberalism again, redeeming its sin. But once the clear-eyed and daring, once clear-eyed and daring Obama, like so many others in his party, has lost his voice. He has been silent about Mamdani in the mayor's race. He's been virtually silent on Gaza too, because he's a fucking fraud. Mamdani! Did I say Mamdani? Mamdani! You gotta say it right. Get it right. He's gonna be the mayor. Get it right. All right. Let me grab a video while I boot up this. Let me get this like interview shit set up. Whoopsie-doopsie daisy.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Presumptive New York City Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani making some waves, a lot of them, in the business community with some comments on the world's richest people over the weekend. This is what he had to say.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Mamdani hoping to lead New York City, which tops the worldwide list of cities with the most billionaires.
Sorry about that, Chad.
I'd like
Just
to
my
keep them here,
login.
if possible. New York has 123 billionaires, according to Forbes. Its richest resident is former Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who notably endorsed Mamdani's opponent, Andrew Cuomo, in last week's Democratic election, or at least the primaries there of all this. I don't know. I was also just separately, I mean, a couple of things, disturbed by the global, globalized, what
I was very disturbed by the thing that I forgot.
What did he say that just made me crazy over the weekend? Did you see what he said? Globalized. He didn't say globalized infidelity.
Yeah.
Bro, they are fucking screwed. Bro, the COVID brain fog is hitting hard, huh? The COVID brain fog is hitting right now.
Infidel, but he did say
Intifada. Globalized
that he wouldn't condemn it. He was asked like 3 times by her,
right?
Which is, you know, some people say is anti-Semitic, some people say is anti-Zionist. Unfortunately, they get conflated either way, right. And so by
unfortunately, you're doing it. It's unfortunate how the thing that I'm doing right now happens. Huh?
Default. I would think you could.
He wouldn't shoot down the speculation that he's an anti-Semite.
Right.
That's
and I don't really understand why he didn't, unless he is. You know, there's.
Because globalized the Intifada has nothing to do with anti-Semitism, and anti-Zionism is correct, and Israel's doing a genocide. That's not anti-Semitic. Resistance to Israel globally is the right thing to do, you know, because they're doing a whole genocide. You know what I mean? You know, they're doing a genocide.
There's been, if you go back and look at his history and some of the things he said and some of the things his parents have said, you know, forget about, there's 123 billionaires in this city. There's close to 1 million people who are Jewish. This is the largest Jewish population outside of Israel.
Right.
And so I don't know. That threw me.
I was surprised to see that, too, because he said some things in the past. You would think when you're at this point that you would at least pivot and say, I'm absolutely not an anti-Semite.
Right.
I want to make sure.
He said that already. Notice how they just babble slander. Notice how they just babbling slander. That's the strategy that's going to work. Guys, you guys babbling slander actually makes us even angrier. It doesn't work. What percentage of the Jewish vote did he get? We don't have that information. There's no data on that yet.
Jewish people feel safe. He didn't take the opportunity to do that, which is shocking. The other thing I will say, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
I thought he tried a little bit in his own way, but he could have easily said, and then tried to, because I thought he was trying to turn it into this thing. Well, I don't want to be like President Trump He said, because I don't want to police speech. But, you know, there's a difference between policing speech, meaning like actually like taking, you know, putting people in jail over speech, and being able to say, you know what, not only would I not say this, I condemn it. It's not something that I think should be said aloud.
Right.
And he didn't take that opportunity. He was offered the opportunity multiple times. And I think there are people who look at that and go, what is going on here?
Well, the other thing is President Trump kind of focused on this, too, this weekend. He said that he's a communist, and he said that if he actually wins election next year, might seek to shut down federal funding for New York
Right.
City, almost like he's done with Harvard
Right.
and other places, and what that might mean for the city as a result. Bradley Tusk, again, referencing back to him, he was
Are you
here on
going to be intimidated by a fascist making empty threats? Are you going to be intimidated by a fascist making empty threats?
Friday. He said it's the best thing that could possibly happen for President Trump would be to have Mamdani win,
Right.
because then he becomes this foil, kind of this punching bag. Best thing that could
You think 80-year-old Donald Trump, after 4 years of an utter failed presidency, is going to look good compared to Zohran Mamdani? I hope this is what they're telling themselves. I legitimately hope they're this ideologically blinkered. AOC will win 70% of the vote.
could happen for President Trump, and for Mamdani, he can just go back and forth at Trump. You have, again, just this.
I mean, it's so interesting to see
this
how
thing
he's
that plays
he's
to the
tapped
extremes
in.
of the
Look, he's
Democratic
clearly
Party.
tapped into an issue in New York, which is affordability.
Yeah.
And the affordability issue is real. It's not that it isn't real. The question is, what's the solution to the affordability problem? I would argue it's not necessarily, you know, re-rent stabilizing things. It's actually creating some supply of housing in this city, changing so many of the crazy restrictions in this city so that you can't build. I mean, that if we actually could actually build in this city, would you be able to solve the problem in 3 or 4 years? No. But over a decade, if you actually really built and went after it, you could do a lot. And I just don't understand why.
Abundance! If we just cut taxes. So what happens when you do abundance policy? Just my famous debate with Vosh, I asked him if he knew what a TIF was, which is a specific type of tax cuts that are given to developers to build property. I asked him what it was because I was trying to get an understanding of his level of knowledge about municipal politics and development. And this is what is going to happen with abundance. You cut the regulations, you cut labor laws, you do all those things. It doesn't cause that much building to occur that would not have otherwise occurred. Because the number one dominant factors in housing construction is what is the cost of land and what are the finance costs. Those are the things that determine whether something pencils out. And with a TIF, basically the local government says you will not have to pay any property taxes on the increased value of the land or the increased value of the development. And so that basically gives them a tax-free subsidy so they can take the money they would have paid in property taxes and instead they can use it to lower their financing costs on the balance sheet. That is what they're going to, that's the next thing they're going to say. They're going to say, we can't build. Financing is too expensive. Land is too expensive. You need to make it so that private developers don't have to pay taxes. And then when that's not enough, they're going to say, you need to subsidize our land purchases. You need to actually pay part of our development costs. And the thing is, what that creates is massive income inequality because they're not going to lower rent. In fact, private developers demand rising rents in order to justify their finance outlook. They need to have cash flow. They need to have a positive debt to income ratio. They need rents to go higher in the private market. If you actually want to lower rents, you're going to have government-run development, where government has land, where government does the building, where government provides the units. That's the only way. Unless you have a large swath of easily available and accessible land with good infrastructural connection to a city, sprawl doesn't decrease the price of housing. And you will see this everywhere because people are not really studying how projects are completed in reality. They are up here at 30,000 feet doing the same ideological ranting they've always done. And this is what's so wrong about the Democratic Party is there is not an actual wonk. It's not serious about the details of actually accomplishing something. This is the crisis that we have. The crisis that we have is we don't have serious politics. We have this kind of shit.
Esther Klein has this book, Abundance, and it's really about building and try to almost take advantage of capitalism.
I've read Abundance. It's not really about building. It is repackaging the same old shit. Again, it is the fifth rebrand of neoliberalism in the Democratic Party. There is nothing new at all. Nothing.
To some degree, to act, not necessarily restricting prices. It's actually abundance, meaning you have to create supply. You have to take some of the restrictions off. You have to let people build the subways without every last union trying to hold back and create these astronomical costs. And I don't think that's going to happen under this gentleman. That's not what he's looking for.
He has, by the way, he's literally gone out of his way to say, if there's any critiques that are logical and rational about our permitting processes or zoning regulations or whatever, I will immediately reform them. But somehow, that's not good enough for these people.
To the NIMBY movement that's now being replaced by the YIMBY movement, go YIMBYs. Thank you for your abundant mindset. It's a plug to Ezra. And it really is about abundance. And to the movement that they represent, which I think was reflected in the comments made a moment ago about getting big stuff done.
Wow, I can't believe right-wing Gavin Newsom is supporting abundance. I guess we'll see. I honestly, we have to do this. I mean, I'm glad it's happening. So we can just see how ineffective it actually is at delivering what they say it's going to deliver. Hey, Shmulander. Hey, housing wonk that works at architecture involved in 2019 New York City movement to change tenant laws with DSA. Apparently Zohran got his start. Sprawl just ends up with the same amount of unaffordable units, just with the worst forms of transport to connect them. That means they're actually going to be even more expensive.
We've got ADP crossing the wires. Let's get to him.
Minus 33,000. ADP saying that non-farm payrolls declined by 33,000. That's substantially below, for the second month in a row, the estimate of 100,000. It is the only decline since March of 2023. Good sector not doing too badly, up 32,000. The losses appear to come from the services sector. We'll show you details in a second, of minus 66,000. And there's the non-farm payroll estimate, which includes government and the private sector, for tomorrow, Thursday, remember, folks, and that's 110,000. It's the second weak month in a row for ADP after downwardly revised 29,000 for May. But it's been running, by the way, substantially weaker than the BLS private sector numbers. We'll give you that in just a second. But first, let's look at which sectors were affected. Small business down 47,000. There's been a lot of speculation as to whether or not the tariffs would be hurting or hitting small business, down 47,000. Medium-sized business down 15,000, but large businesses doing okay, up positive 30,000. The losses were in this professional and business services sector, minus 56,000, but also one of the stalwarts of the job market, education and health services, down 52,000. Financial activities down 14, but manufacturing up 15, and leisure and hospitality still doing well, up 32,000. As for wages, the 4.4%, this is, by the way, called for millions of paychecks out there, so it's actually better than the government data.
Oh my God, chat.
It is up 4.4%.
Once you build a massive deportation machine, a private industry will not stop with one category of immigrants or immigrants at all. It will self-perpetuate new classes of people to detain, to fill detention beds and meet removal quotas. Profits need to increase, always leading to further detention, imprisonment. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
For people staying in their jobs, that's down a tick, and 6.8% for job changers. That's down 0.2 from the last month. Note that the average absolute difference, without care to sign, between ADP and the BLS private sector is now up to 77,000 per month. So it's not exactly spot on, and there's some scope for the ADP to be in line with the lower estimates on the street. Guys, I've seen other data that suggests the payrolls will be soft. Some of the high-frequency data we follow from Homebase, Goldman noting the big data. Also, maybe worth mentioning, in the ISM manufacturing report from yesterday, they said that mentions of job firings outnumbered mentions of hirings by 3 to 1. I think the market has a, what's the right word, ambivalent relationship with ADP, right, because it's just not on. But as for perhaps spotting a trend or underlining the concerned softness, I think it probably does a decent job of that. Over the course of a 12-month period, 2 are off by about 200,000. So over time, they kind of come together. That's only 14,000 a month. As for the Fed, this will increase pressure on the Federal Reserve to cut rates, but it won't change anything about the concern they have over potential inflation. So it really just kind of deepens the stagflationary concern that we've heard from Fed officials.
Meantime, the one and only Rick Santelli joins us from the CNBC.
If you guys want to know who Rick Santelli is the guy who started the Tea Party movement.
For his
this is your NBC News coverage.
To those numbers, Rick, you've been looking at them, listening to Mr. Leisman. What's on your mind?
Well, I mean, definitely it's the worst job creation from ADP since March of 23. That's a pretty good stretch of time. We all know that the labor market, at least purported by all the experts, economists, and Fed personnel, is just kind of a ticking time bomb of slowness. It's going to definitely slow down. It's just a matter of when and what the rate of change is going to be. I don't know that I agree with that, but I do agree that the glide path is going to be headed down, but I think it's going to be a long glide path. And the relationship between ADP and the Labor Department's statistics that we'll be seeing tomorrow, as Steve adequately pointed out, there's a wide spread there. When I look at what happened with JOLTS yesterday, when I consider most of the press and headlines over tariffs and the current administration's policies, it doesn't shock me that there may be more uses of the word firing than hiring. But maybe it's the contrarian end of this that we should pay more attention to. Maybe we should learn a lesson about what the equity markets did, about the kind of counter-trend rally we had that briefly pushed yields down, although I think that much of that may be in the rearview mirror. Ultimately, I think it's easy. Yes, I think the best days of the labor market are behind us, but I do think that there could be a resurgence down the road for a variety of reasons after we hit maybe a small speed bump, and I think that's the real issue here. Are we going to get a genuine slowdown or a small hiccup? I'm in the latter camp.
Oh, wait. The far-right guy doesn't think Trump's it's not gonna enter into a major slowdown? What a surprise.
Can we just go for one? Can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
What do you think this is a function of? Meaning why? We're talking about AI. We're talking about tariffs. So talking about what?
Eventually, standing in place creates a drain on the job growth. The reason is because people leave the job market if you don't hire more people. So what we've heard is
these people are being paid to listen to this shit.
Not so, and what we've seen, by the way, in the data is not so much firing.
I'll explain it to you, chat. Donald Trump has isolated the United States and been a tremendous. He's made us into a pariah, and the way he's treating immigrants and foreign visitors has ricocheted across the world, which has led to a massive depression of travel to and tourism in the United States, which has led to a suppression of demand in the service sector. Because so many less people want to come here and spend money and visit because they're worried about being detained or mistreated because, for example, they don't like Israel. So they're just not coming here. So we see a massive decrease in tourism, therefore reverberating throughout the service sector. There, I just explained it, you dumb fuck.
It's a lack of hiring. Over time, that creates saps the strength of the labor market if you're not replacing those people who leave, so the total employment level would fall. I think the uncertainty may be a major role here. And I also think that we've heard a lot of stories about small businesses, the ones who are importing stuff, the ones who take the imported stuff and make other stuff out of it, small manufacturers, they have been potentially hurt by this. Before any of the potential positives that are hoped for by the administration, the bringing back or the reshoring, before that has any effect. I think the key here, again, is this stability, which would people say, okay, I know what the tariffs are going to be. I know what the taxing is going to be. That would say, okay, I get the situation. Now I can right-size my job, my employment, which may be higher, maybe lower, maybe the same. I would just point out, though, it was the weakness in the job market. People debate the 50 basis point cut before the election. It was the weakness in the job market that was cited repeatedly by the Fed as to why they cut 50. They did so in a very different inflation environment than the one we have right now. And there are the probabilities now.
I've been desperately looking for a job since graduating from UCSD last summer, and I can't even get a reply from a grocery store, let alone with my field. Yeah, I heard the job market is absolutely fucking terrible. Guys, we already looked at this. We already looked at the flooding in the detention facility. Already looked.
They're a little bit higher for October, a little bit higher for December.
Why was it a really
this
different
morning.
inflation environment?
Because you had declining inflation back then.
Come on. You had stagnant inflation back then, exactly like we have now. The sticky last mile. Really, nothing has changed except for the way the Fed talks about it. It really hasn't changed much, Steve. If you look at the core numbers on PC, the core numbers on a lot of the data points, they're kind of stuck between 2.5% and 3.1%. Really, nothing has changed on that front. There has been some uncertainty, but whether you look at things in the past like long-term capital, the credit crisis, uncertainty, exogenous issues always creep up, and the Fed seems to be able to determine policy before they happen. I'm not sure why tariffs are so damn different.
Rick, just real quick.
God, he's such a right-wing bitch. Basically, what they want the Fed to do is juice the economy by dropping interest rates so that it's very cheap to borrow money, and the economy will explode, which will do what? It'll make anybody who owns assets tremendously richer because we're not producing enough. So if you own assets, easy money means you're going to be rich. That's what they're complaining about.
You have across the board at least 10% increase in import. And that will mathematically
10% what? Wait, I didn't pick that up. 10% what?
An at least across the board 10% tariff likely to be put on imports. So that's going to have some mathematical effect.
Right. And you're making that the center of your worry bead universe, although it's what? Imports 11% of the economy. Once again, I will stress, we are overplaying the uncertainty Trump tariff card. And Trump's overplaying that he's not more hyperbole than fact on how rigid this is going to be.
What is it?
And both of these are going to meet. What is what? I think, we just made new all-time highs in stocks. I don't know. I think things are pretty darn good.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but Elon and Trump are fighting again. Elon says he wants to start a new political party because both parties are it's a uniparty and they don't care about the debt.
We begin tonight with what President Trump calls his big, beautiful bill, which could be headed for a final vote in the Senate after a long day of debating amendments to it and perhaps for some Republican members staring into the abyss. Here's why. Polling consistently shows it is strikingly unpopular with voters. The Congressional Budget Office estimates it adds more than $3 trillion to the national debt and could deprive nearly 12 million Americans of health insurance through Medicaid. That in it now comes with a double dose of existential terror for Republicans on the fence. On the one hand, the president over the weekend managed to drive one opponent of the bill out of seeking another term. On the other, Elon Musk has just weighed in on anyone voting yes, quoting him now. Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame. And if that weren't enough, he adds, and they will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth. Now, given that his Mars mission won't be ready to go for years, that's a lot of primaries. But that's not all. He also reiterated his call from 3 weeks ago for a new political party and says he would start one a day after the bill passes. Rock, meet hard place. North Carolina's Tom Tillis chose The Rock, announcing that he will not seek another term, and he slammed the president on the bill's Medicaid cuts.
What do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years or 3 years when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid because the funding's not there anymore, guys? It is inescapable that this bill in its current form will betray the very promise that Donald J. Trump made in the Oval Office.
So today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that Senator Tillis is, and these are her words, just wrong. But listen to what the president has been saying on this subject going back a decade and decide for yourself.
Save Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security without cuts. Have to do it.
We're going to love and cherish Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We're not going to do anything with that.
Can you guarantee that Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security will not be touched?
Yeah, I mean, I have said it so many times, you shouldn't be asking me that question.
What happens if it comes to your desk, has the tax cuts, but also cuts to Medicaid? Would you veto that?
Well, we're not doing that.
Would you veto that?
I would if they were cutting it, but they're not cutting it. We're not cutting Medicaid. We're not cutting Medicare.
A lot to get to tonight. CNN Chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins starts us off. Caitlin, how concerned is the White House about potential cracks in the Republican coalition?
I mean, they're watching all of this and watching Senator Tom Tillis, in that scathing floor speech on Sunday, John. But then, of course, after he announced that he was not going to be seeking re-election, the president was cheerleading that and saying essentially good riddance to Tom Tillis, given they believe he's been a thorn in their side during all of this. And John, obviously, when they look at this overall, and I've been talking to White House officials about what they think is ultimately going to happen here, they do think this will pass. They don't think Republicans are going to defy the president on his signature legislation, as big and sweeping as it is, and with those potential cuts. The question is how long it's going to take to get this through, to get this done. And that's what they've been watching, obviously, very closely at the White House. But with Senator Tillis there, as he's coming out and he's saying that the president is being misinformed by his advisors on what is actually in this bill, and that it's going to make him essentially go back on the promises that you just heard him say there about not interfering with people's Medicaid benefits. I mean, the White House is just flatly rejecting that and arguing that it's wrong. But I think you have to look at, with Tillis's decision yesterday to say he's not going to be seeking re-election, he doesn't really have a lot to lose here in terms of why he is speaking out and why he is saying that, or any incentive to say something that he doesn't actually think could put Republicans in peril. And so that is something they're watching, obviously, closely at the White House. They just essentially want to get this passed. They want to be able to talk about tax cuts and have that as something that they are trumpeting. And you're seeing how the president is working on this in terms of writing scathing Truth Social posts of people who are disagreeing with him, and also taking senators out for golfing trips, calling them up on the phone and chatting.
It's actually incredible how much better Donald Trump is at handling Congress than Joe Biden. Joe Biden was in the Senate since he was 29 years old, and he literally could not get anything done. Couldn't pressure anybody, could not get anything passed. And Donald Trump is fucking whipping all these politicians into shape. It's almost like experience doesn't match competence. And I hate to say it, but for accomplishing his goals, Trump is more competent than Joe Biden. Now, his goals are terrible and his policies are awful, but he's at least able to pressure his own party into doing the shit he wants them to do. Joe Biden may be the worst president we've ever had. Like, I legitimately think he is up there in the top 5 worst presidents we ever had. Like, is he even alive anymore? Has he died? Like, he's I know he said that he has stage 4 cancer or whatever. Is he dead? Like 6 months? Like, is he going to make it to the midterm? You guys think? I don't think he will. Is there a poly market on Biden dying before the midterm? Joe Biden got several bills passed. They weren't great, but he got the infrastructure bill, the CHIPS bill. Trump is barely getting one bill passed. I regret to inform you that you've been misinformed about the bills. Bipartisan infrastructure bill was so right-wing, Mitch McConnell voted for it. So it was a Republican bill. It actually made climate change worse. And as far as his other bill, the CHIPS Act was incredibly unsuccessful waste of money. So, just like passing a bill that has a high price tag is not the same thing as being a success, right? Like, you understand that, right? Like, he didn't actually make anybody's lives better. And because he was so politically unsuccessful, by supporting the genocide in Gaza, destroying his youth support, because he was so politically maladept, he has officially, his own vice president was so tainted she got demolished in every swing state. He was a failure.
With them as this slog right now on Capitol Hill is happening with all these amendments that they are trying to get passed. None of them so far have gotten passed.
Well, speaking of people who disagree with him, Elon Musk came out with a new/old threat today, saying he would primary or push to primary any lawmakers who support this bill. That's a split again with the president. How does the White House view this?
Well, it's interesting because a few White House officials were surprised that he came out today and said this, given he had gone largely quiet on his criticisms of the president and of legislation that he's trying to get passed. He had actually come out and said he regretted some of the things he said about Trump when they were sniping back and forth at one another previously. And so now to look at this, what he's saying, I mean, he's going after this and saying Democrats and Republicans are both in the wrong here. A new political political party needs to be formed, that all of Washington, he says, is in agreement more than they are in disagreement, and threatening to primary Republicans who vote yes on this. Obviously, John, that is a lot of Republicans who are likely expected to vote yes on this that he's saying that he would be going after. But he's essentially trying to highlight what he says is the criticism of Republicans who complain about big spending in Washington and then are about to vote on this, given the estimates that we've seen, including from the budget office this weekend, of just how much this is going to add to the deficit.
Yeah, that's a lot of primaries. He better have deep pockets. Caitlin Collins, thank you very much. And of course, you can join Caitlin at the top of the hour for The Source. She's going to speak to Senator Elizabeth Warren tonight. Right now, let's bring in Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. He's on the Armed Services and Judiciary Committee. Senator, nice to see you. Any prediction on what will happen tonight and what time?
Certainly, I have no prediction on time, and I've just come from the Senate floor. There's a real question about whether they have the votes. They are really struggling because they face this dilemma of making $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, which
the UK Parliament just prescribed Palestine Action as a terrorist group. That's your centrist. By the way, the Labour Party has got 73% disapproval. Running to the right, running into Israel's arms is cratering the Labour Party. The Labour Party is becoming destroyed. Honestly, if Corbyn had a set of balls and he announced he was starting a new party, they would win. Keir Starmer has destroyed the Labour Party, and he's setting it up so that reform can win, but it won't.
Require them to make slashing cuts in Medicaid, in nutrition programs, in aid to veterans and student loans, and much, much more, which will have really drastic effects on their constituents. So right now, they're engaged in this horse trading kind of process, providing exemptions or exceptions for parts of populations in certain states, trying to get their approval with earmarks, as they used to be known. And the reason they're struggling is that the American people get it. That's why 2-1, they disapprove of this bill. The tax cuts for the billionaires of $4.5 trillion are absolutely necessary. Ballooning the national debt by $3.3 trillion, absolutely abhorrent. And so I think
it's time that we look at Asmongold. Asmongold, debate me, bitch. Debate me, you fucking pussy.
What is this? I don't know who this guy is, but I feel like the more that we find out, the worse it gets. The community has been a safe space echo chamber of a bunch of these psychotic retards. I know that. That's why I'm talking about it. That's explicitly the reason why I'm talking about it. My goal is to completely eradicate these parasites from the internet.
I mean, come on. This has to be against TOS. I mean, come on. This is... I'm going to eradicate these... Bro, you're a parasite. You live in your own filth. You are literally surrounded by pests. You are a fucking parasite. You don't even believe in Trumpism. You're just a parasite on the ass of conservatism, which is actually funny. You represent nothing. You believe in nothing. You just want to cause chaos. I'm a 35-year-old man. Like, you are a fucking loser. I mean, I don't care how many viewers you have. You are a fucking nothing. You fucking loser. Holy shit. Oh my God. Okay, look at this. Twitch, TOS. Because he wants TOS enforced, guys. He wants TOS enforced. Let's go. We'll find it. We'll find it. Look at this fucking dipshit. Nobody's scared of you. Asmongold. No one's scared of you. You're not scary. Unless you're harassing small women with small followings, you ain't scaring anybody, bitch.
And if nothing else, I want to completely change the narrative around whether these people are good actors or bad actors. These people are not good people. They're not on the right side of history.
You support genocide and Donald Trump. What the fuck are you talking about? You had to apologize on your hands and knees. Asmongold, we'll make you do it again. Last time you did it, you crawled on your hands and knees, and we made you clean your room. We're going to make you do it again.
Fucking bullies. They're fucking aggressive.
We're bullies? You just said you wanted to erase us from the internet. Get the fuck out of here.
abusive, vitriolic, mean bullies. And
you said an entire people should be genocided and you don't care. Get the fuck out of here, you bitch.
They lie about people and they tell bullshit about them, and
you admitted it. You said that you gave her cigarettes. You said this. You said this. You have a house that's full of, do you think cockroaches is cockroach filth and rotting animals are good for people with lung issues? You said this. He also said Hurricane Katrina should have done a better job against those animals. Pathetic.
They say whatever they need to say to make other people either stay silent or agree with them. And I think everybody should be against this, especially Hassan, because this is a person who's representing his community that's pushing this fuck.
God, look at this cancel culture attempt. It doesn't work. You got your dream. Cancel culture doesn't work. Anders Nordic. You had a fucking WoW character as a homage to a terrorist. You had a literal terrorist who killed kids primarily. He went to a summer camp and shot a bunch of kids, and you named your WoW character out of him. You parasitic fucking coward.
Fucking bullshit. This is a joke. He should be ashamed of himself to have parasites like this. I can't even believe it.
Your closest ally is Tectone, a fucking accused sex criminal. Who are you to talk? You started a org with what was his name? Oh fuck, what was the OTK rapist? The other one, Rich Campbell? Was he the OTK rapist? I can't remember. I don't pay attention to these fucking scum. How many rapists are in your immediate close friend group? Destiny, Rich Campbell, Tectone's father. You're surrounded by rapists. You're surrounded by sex criminals. You're surrounded by your own filth. Honestly, like, every day you take a shower, I'll take off. Like, we're not scared of you. We're not scared of you. So tell me about yourself. I watch Asmongold. Gone. This is false because an Asmongold fan would have gotten this far. Yeah, nobody. I mean, like, we know this. You overplayed your hand, Asmongold. You overplayed it. You overplayed your hand. You leaned into the racism. You leaned into the Trumpism. And now it's coming back. And you had to say that you would support Mamdani. You said you would have voted Zohran Mamdani. You're trying to get your anti-Zionist cred back because you crawled on your hands and knees for Ethan Klein and Destiny, the world's most famous cuck. This is who you are.
Like most people, yeah. Keep that in mind. And show the Mike from PA video from yesterday. It's crazy how polarized the internet is.
Oh, he's gonna show the Mike from PA video again. Oh no, Asmongold. Oh no, Asmongold fans. Oh no, you're gonna see the Mike from PA video again. Don't make me start showing your videos, man. Don't make me start showing your videos.
Well, I don't know about polarized. I can't. Who can defend this? Who defends this? Do any of these people actually defend this behavior? There's no way they can. It's crazy. And so anyway,
so this is directly, now he says he wants TOS enforced. This is directly against TOS, community guidelines, inciting viewers to target another person with abuse, regardless of whether the targets are on or off Twitch. Organizing or participating in hostile raiding, directly opening a user's channel stream and directing personal attacks. This is against the TOS, period. You're not allowed to do that. So say you're going to erase people from the internet. How are you going to do that? Are you going to leave your house? Not a doubt. Call for your own ban as TOS defender. I want to retweet that tweet again. All right, chat. We have to pivot away from me fighting. We have a new video on YouTube. Get in there. Obviously, it's a little bit early, chat, for the I think the timing of the YouTube videos are a little bit early, mods. If you're gonna post a YouTube video, I probably wouldn't post them right this second. I'd either post them like a little bit later in the day or earlier. I mean, it's so funny. Asmongold is like gonna try to bully anybody. Like, who are you fooling? Who are you kidding? Who are you fucking kidding? You're fooling no one. Nobody is intimidated. Nobody is scared. All right, chat. I gotta fix the interview scene. With our friend here. Okay, so we're not doing Alyssa. We're going to be bringing on Michael Burns. So let me just, where is it capturing right now? Okay. Look at that, chat. Hi, Mike. How you doing? All right, let's see. I mean, here's the thing. I'm live every day, and the Asmongold fans aren't even in here. It's fucking, like, they're going to scare me off the internet? they're not even in here. They don't even exist. All right, did we get one? Okay. Nah, this is an unhinged tweet. The tweet is insane. No, it's not. Asmongold literally killed his mother by giving her cigarettes when she was on 100% oxygen and surrounding her with filth. And he said that. It's a quote of his, not mine. It's not like my take. It's his take. People are just repeating what he said he did. I mean, it is what it is.
I'm always in my house, and so I didn't really realize it. I feel like there's at least one dead animal in my house right now. I feel like I'm like 70% sure there's one dead animal in the house right now. And it's been there for a while. But it's been one. Yeah. Cause a bed. Yeah. And so, cause like there's like mold and shit everywhere too. And
hold on. Let me this.
This is what the right wing is now. This is the right wing now. This is the right wing now. Asmongold is going to start trying to attack me because he can't beat Hassan, right? So to try to like cope, he's going to try to go after me. That's his entire strategy. And guess what? It ain't going to work. Denims and I are going to be completely fine. His strategy of going after me and Denims is going to completely backfire and fail. Just like it did with Destiny. Destiny's been trying to do this for a decade now. He's been trying to go after me and Denims for a decade now, and he completely failed. So now he's going to do it with Asmongold. Oh no, Asmongold viewers aren't going to like me. Who gives a fuck?
Why is he's holding it? Chat.
All right, chat. I need to like make sure. Hold on. Let me message our man. Sounds good. All right, Michael Burns of Wisecrack is coming on, chat. Following Zach. I mean, I don't follow. I mean, like it is. This is every single Asmongold viewer. They follow 8 different like Gooner creators. No hate to any of these creators. And then they scream about how the TOS isn't being enforced fairly. He followed me in between following Wasabi Cat and Salty Gummy Bear and Austin Show. I mean, like every Gooner creator. It's so funny. I mean, there's a lot of really cool people in this list. Like most. Who's his first follow? I don't know who Dodo Doya is. Are they actually a creator? Okay, I guess so. Gamer.
I just realized I started stream without my fucking.
They seem pretty chill. I don't know them though, so I can't say if they're like really bad. When did he discover the Gooners? Who is his first Gooner? This is pretty good. He seems like he likes diverse. He's a diverse Gooner. He likes a lot of different types. He's a woke Gooner. He believes in diversity. Open Presents. Thanks for the 100 gifted subs. Holy fucking shit. Holy shit. Speaking of that, chat, please consider supporting the stream by subscribing at tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 sub. If you have Amazon Prime, attach it to your Twitch account. You get 1 free sub a month. That's your Twitch Prime sub. $2.50 directly from Jeff Bezos' pockets. Open Presents has been going wild this week, chat. So I need some of you to step up and support the stream. Make sure you're paying for your own sub. And this would be a perfect opportunity for a nice hype train. Mike, paychecks come a day early this week due to holiday falling on a Friday. Chat should be gifting nonstop. So true. Is Open Presents okay? Can we get a wellness check? They're just rich. They're just rich. When you have a lot of money, you get to do stuff like that. That's what being rich is. They get to do. They're in the chat. They're a chatter. They get to do what they want like that. People like Asmongold think that rich people should determine the entire course of society and that the regular people should have no voice and they should just accept whatever scraps they're given. He believes that because he won a lottery ticket, which is he was a narcissistic enough to stream, but disgusting enough to be noticeable. He's a pure mediocrity, except in the level of filth he lives in. That's the only thing that separates him from others. Like he was interesting insofar as he was disgusting. And that gave him, and then, you know, he kind of rode, he copied whatever the algorithm was pushing him to say. He just kind of rode with whatever was the faux edgy gamer. That's who he is. He believes in nothing, he is nothing, and he doesn't even represent a threat. Nobody is concerned. Nobody is concerned. And right after Ethan Klein files a lawsuit, and then runs away on vacation to post about it every day. On his 40th birthday, he's posting about these lawsuits that are not going to work. All right, let me see if Michael's here. He said he broke his microphone. Nightbot was unable to authenticate with Twitch's API. Oh shit, I have to we have something that's broken? Condition Bleen, something's broken. Thank you everybody for all the support. Remember chat, the top sub gifter and the top bit donor get the Hype Train Conductor badge, which is a golden locomotive next to their name. Michael broke his microphone. The mics are having mic issues. So true. Oh, did you guys see, while we're waiting for Michael Burns, excuse me, did you see how ContraPoints blocked me? Did you see this? I asked ContraPoints, calm like a Tom, thank you for the 20. I asked her if she was a liberal Zionist, and it was getting like a lot of likes, and she just blocked me. She could have said no. She could have just said no, and I would have been like, okay. And the reason why I asked her that is because there's been this big Islamophobic campaign to tar Zohran Mamdani as anti-Semitic and kind of push the idea that there's a lot of anti-Semitism on the left. So she had a post made by this creator named Rathbone, who he made a post. It was mocking the way that presidents always go to the Wailing Wall and act all pious, which is something they don't do for any other religion. You don't see them going to the Vatican and like crossing themselves. He mocked it. I think that it's probably on the edge. I personally don't think that that is a good way to argue against Israel. I think it's kind of cringe post. I wouldn't call it anti-Semitic, but I would say I could see why people could be offended. It's not a good post. It doesn't do a good job, but it's not like virulently anti-Semitic. It's just it's a post made by somebody who doesn't really get the nuances of what's happening and didn't make a good post. It is what it is. Okay. I'm pretty sure, isn't he Jewish? I'm pretty sure Rathbone is Jewish. So anyway, she was like, oh man, so many of the posts on here are raging anti-Semitic. And I was just like, what the fuck? Of all the anti-Semitic shit all over Twitter, you're going to use the example of this guy who is Jewish, and he's questionable, and I don't really know him well enough to tell you if he's a good guy or not, but it's pretty fucking cringe. So I asked her that question because I was like, why are you doing that in this context? The discourse is trying to accuse Zohran Mamdani of being anti-Semitic. All right, chat, I'm bringing on Michael. Hold on. Pop it over to the interview scene. Well, actually, let me bring him in before I do that. I don't want him to like be picking his nose and then be on the Zoom call. Let me joining. All right, he's muted right now. Because I mute people when they join because I'm live. Michael, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to pop up. All right, beautiful. All right, right over to the interview scene. Look at that. Professional streaming. I swear to God. All right, Michael, I can't hear you. Are you speak? Hold on. No, you're fine. I think it's actually just a setting of mine. All right, try now.
Hello.
Beautiful. Okay, I fixed it. Awesome.
We did it.
Awesome. Okay, welcome in. Everybody.
Yeah, thanks for letting me come.
Everybody is well aware of who you are here because I've watched a lot. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, let me bring that over here. Okay. Professional streaming. It's difficult. All right. Okay. Is everything working well? Beautiful.
I think you did it.
Okay, we did it. We're perfect. All right. Okay. Sorry about that, chat. Let's get the interview started. This is Michael Burns, formerly of Wisecrack, now just independent in the Michael Burns channel. You are a former philosophy professor, and you make videos on philosophy, politics, and culture. And we know this because we have stolen a lot of your content. And what I mean by that is transformed it legally under fair use doctrine. And made a transformational piece of content, and I admit to stealing nothing. But I've always really appreciated you because I like philosophy. You know, I did it in undergrad before I went to law school, and I have always felt like there's been an impoverished way that people talk about these topics. Like they refer to theory as if it's like you need to read theory without actually explaining the ideas they're trying to reference, which implies to me they didn't actually read it. And so I've always found you as a valuable source for thinking about these things deeply. Welcome on to the Central Committee stream.
Oh my God. I mean, I've watched many times. So fun to be here. And you have a good community. I can always like, I not to be judgmental, but I judge people, especially streamers, by how their community act when they show up other places. And I always have really good interactions with folks from your community. So shout out to all of you. And definitely one of the communities where people reach out often to be like, hey, bug Mike, talk to him. So good to be here.
Great job, chat. Keep bullying people.
But it's like nice bullying, which I love.
Yeah. I brought up your channel. I hope you don't mind this. I brought up your channel. I'm going to promote it. Mods, make sure that you are spamming this for everybody to follow. I can say that like, I believe that you should be the meanest member of your community as a creator. You know, like your community should be kept in line by you, and they shouldn't be going around doing anything you don't want them to do. And you can judge someone exactly by what you said based on how their community acts and how interacting with them, both positively and negatively, you know, how you're treated. And so I think I have one of the better communities. So I appreciate that, Glaze, to start.
Because you're ruthless to them. You put them in their place.
Well, it's just like you need to demonstrate the right way to behave, you know, and because they have a parasocial connection with you. And so you have a responsibility to use that, you know, ethically and to model the correct way of interacting with other human beings. I think that's pretty common sense, right?
I think so. I mean, that's like a thing I'm kind of obsessed with these days is how people like act in their interactions with other people that make stuff on the internet and how that facilitates their communities. You know, I'm sure you've had interactions like this before as well, but a thing I used to like to do, sometimes I don't do it as much, is respond to really trollish, aggressive comments with humanity. Yeah.
I do. I just find I do both.
Yeah.
Sometimes I tell them they're never going to find love. And sometimes I like tell them, you know, it'll be okay, man.
Yeah. I mean, because like recently there was someone who made a video criticizing one of my videos, and I just hit him up to be like, hey, like if you just want to like, and it's kind of like a philosophy person, but I'm not going to give their name because I don't want to give free promo. Because that's the sort of spicy bitch that I am. But, you know, I had them on the show. And once we started talking, they were much more like a normal person and not like the person who in their video was calling me like a dumb fuck. And I just think that there's like a dehumanization that takes place sometimes with the online interaction. And I don't know if we could ever really rehumanize it, but I'm interested in trying to make things slightly more human if we can.
I would say that a couple things there. And just to get this started, how have you experienced being a content creator, especially a left-wing content creator?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've rehashed the, you know, leaving Wisecrack. But the way that there's like YouTube has this industry where people are the faces of channels and really are who the viewers are coming to see, but they're secretly owned by some like corporation or conglomerate. And that separation between who's actually making the creative work and who controls the profit from it is really bad on YouTube. And so what do you think going forward we should do as leftists to make sure that we're not enriching like horrible corporations with the left-wing content? How do we prevent it being captured by capital?
Yeah. I mean, so like in one sense, you know, there was a period where it felt like for a lot of years at Wisecrack, we were more or less getting away with it. And by that, I mean, we were a part of a company that, I'm not exaggerating, friends, like really didn't know that we existed. So, you know, we had resources to make stuff. There was some minimal support we had from a corporate structure. We would get paychecks and health insurance. And like there was a day where we were making a video about how CEOs shouldn't exist. And as I was in this room filming the video, the CEO of the company walked by and waved at me. And, you know, of course, he had no idea what I was saying in there. So I think that like if people are in positions where some stupid company is paying you money to do shit, cool. However, I think that model's definitely in its dying days.
But what did he do? What did the CEO do, if you don't mind me asking?
What do you mean? What did he do like for his job, or what did he do in that instance?
Yeah, like, yeah. What exactly does the CEO of Wisecrack do all day?
Well, so we were a part of a company called Enthusiast Gaming, and it was it's like a Russian doll thing where like Wisecrack started by some guys who I all like still like very much. These dudes started a thing during a certain wave of like the YouTube boom. They got this channel valued at like way more than it was ever worth, and kind of cashed out to a smaller company that was still like fine. That smaller company then sold it to the big kind of stupid company. I don't know what the CEO of these places ever did, because they just make bad decisions. I mean, like most media companies these days. And I think that like, if I learned anything, and if the people I worked with learned anything, is if like you're in a position like that, the best thing you could do is use the opportunity to both form relationships with the good, creative, left-leaning people that you work with, and then B, take advantage in as much as you can of those platforms to then make your own stuff. I think that's what a lot of us are trying to do right now. But like, there's no future in that. Like, there's no future in corporate-owned YouTube streaming digital media spaces. Like, it's a failed business model and it doesn't work.
Well, I mean, I think what you're really talking about is 0% interest, period, where, you know, companies were able to borrow money from banks or, you know, get it from VCs at basically 0%. And suddenly a whole bunch of ridiculous, non-viable products were able to be produced based on, you know, that paper valuation. And I think we're still in the kind of hangover from that period where our economy was totally built on this zero interest rate environment, resulting in all sorts of financializations of industries that honestly were already mature and just needed to produce a reasonable rate of return. You know, now we have to turn it into some sort of profit maximizing spiral. And you can see that in video games, you can see that in movies and television, you can see that even now on online content. And what I really love about Twitch, and why I spent so much time building my community on Twitch, is because I just got directly paid by the viewers, and that was kind of the way that it was set up. And obviously Twitch takes a ridiculous cut, but they, you know, the community of like, hey, we should give our streamer $5 or now $6 a month, created this base where I no longer had to worry about literally anything. I run 0 ads. I have no sponsors because I would rather just say what I want to say, including criticizing sponsors, without having to worry that I'm suddenly going to not be able to pay my rent. And
have you seen this recent reaction or critique against streamers and YouTubers who make money off of their audiences?
I mean, it depends on what you mean by make money off their audience, you know?
Well, okay. Yeah. So let me be more clear. So there's been, and I guess to an extent I'm a part of this, but there's been like a recent wave of especially YouTube creators and especially sort of like philosophy, social theory, left-wing creators who have like made videos and said stuff to the effect of like, hey, this isn't working out that great financially. If you guys want to support me on, you know, Twitch or whatever. And there was a wave of videos last week from like really angry dudes who all looked like young Gen Xers who were very like aggro about people getting money from their audiences or signing up for like Patreons or exclusive content or whatever like that. And it was this weird sort of moralism to me where it's like, okay, so people shouldn't do like corporate stuff or have sponsors or whatever, that's fine. But also it's bad. They get paid directly for their work by people. So like, what do we want? Like, you know, a bartering system or something?
They don't want anything.
Yeah, it's. I see someone in the chat who I think that's Sean, said, you know, holier than thou BS. But yeah, I think there's a weird, I guess, like preciousness about money and stuff like that. But I think for leftist content creators, it's better to be upfront, because what is the whole thing that the corporate world does to it? It obfuscates like relations to capital, and we don't talk about salaries, we don't talk about money. So I like supporting people and watching content of folks where I'm just like, cool, my money's going to this person to keep making the stuff that they make that I like.
I think the biggest mistake the left makes in a general sense is constantly entertaining sea lioning or controlling incoherent bullshit that people throw against the wall. I'll give you something that I've been saying recently is that if you're rich like me, they'll say you're a champagne socialist. You have it easy. You don't know what it's like to work. Now, I started off, you know, I've worked road construction, you know, so I was out there on 150-degree asphalt, you know, working road construction with my, you know, I know what hard work is. So just leave that aside. But the reason why I bring that up is if you're rich, you're a champagne socialist. If you're poor, you're envious, you're jealous, you're lazy, you're bitter.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're middle class, which means you have some, education, you got a decent job somewhere, you're getting paid, you have a little bit of savings, maybe you own your own home. Well, they'll call your boss and they'll say, do you see what this person is saying online? And try to get you fired. So there is no position,
is so nuts.
There is no position you can have economically where it's now okay to argue for the left. If you're rich, you're out of touch. If you're poor, you're jealous and envious. If you're middle class, they're going to try to get you fired. And so basically what I'm saying is anytime someone says you're a blah, therefore blah, that is invalid bullshit and you should laugh at them. And it's the same thing with like people yell at me or Hassan or yourself and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you make money from the content. And it's like, I make money from the thousands of people who watch me every day. Some percentage of them, 10% or 20%, give me $5, $6 voluntarily. There is no ethical consideration. And you see this kind of like spin of like, oh, I'm going to investigate every single thing you do to try to see if you're having fun, because leftism equals you're not allowed to have fun. That's the mimetic idea they're trying to spread, right? Like leftists are scolds, leftists never have fun, leftists mean you can't enjoy a nice car or a good meal. It's just bullshit.
Yeah.
And
it's just
we should say that.
For sure. And I think to even like simplify it more, it's that conflation of, I guess, like individual behavior and structure. And I think some of these people are well-intentioned. I think some of these people are operating in bad faith, but there are just these constant conflations where people think they're criticizing this like structures of capitalism, like economic or political systems, but they end up just moralizing about the behavior of individuals, which then misses the point and falls right back into the, neoliberal ethos. And often when people are criticizing, the content creator for owning a car or something like that, they're sort of just sliding past the overarching economic system that's the real problem. And it's just a bummer to see that happening.
Yeah. And okay, so I have a subject that I wanted to pick your brain in. And if you want to throw in throw up a red flag and say, I don't really want to talk about it, that's fine. Or maybe we could keep it general and not name specific people. Yeah. What do you think about the kind of rise of, if I'm butchering the philosophic term, please correct me.
Yeah.
But it's like conservative nihilism or pseudo conservative nihilism, where they're just like, it's purely focused on enjoying and relishing in the pain of others, the arbitrariness of life, the arbitrariness of society. The creator I'm thinking of right now is a guy named Asmongold. I don't know if you've seen him.
I'm like vaguely aware. Someone I'm aware of just like when like you or Hassan or someone else talks about them. So all of my experience with this person has been mediated via others.
Yeah, I mean, just to describe it, basically they think like it's might makes right. It's like a very, very like light, like, hey, I don't care if Palestinians die because their culture is inferior and it has nothing to do with me and it is what it is. Or when immigrants get, when protesters get arrested, he said, well, you shouldn't have blocked the road, so you should go to prison for that. And just this nonstop and kind of relishing in the pain of others, relishing in, school shooters or things like that. Like this movement on the right that kind of nihilistically enjoys and celebrates suffering for suffering's sake and kind of says like, hey, I just want to see chaos. I just want to see harm. What do you think about this as like the new frontier of right-wing content? I don't know if you've encountered this shit, but it is huge.
Again, I kind of like all the worst stuff. I just let other people mediate for me. So whether it's you or Hassan or RM Brown or channels where people watch all the bad guys, so I don't have to. But there is a sense in the most broad way where I look at people like that as folks who don't, and I guess this is where the nihilism comes in, don't believe in anything. Like they don't believe in any foundational ideas. They don't have any principles. They don't have any hope. And ultimately they don't believe in anything inherently creative or I guess egalitarian about humanity as such. And it's really depressing to be in a position like that. And I think it's also really boring and dehumanizing both for the, it's like really boring. And I think not having an overarching project to it. Because to me, this sounds like these people aren't even like, and I hate to say that classical neoconservatives are in any way, shape, or form good, but this makes classical neoconservatism sound better because at least those are people that had a project. I mean, it makes me think of
they at least advocated for liberalism, right? You know, like they were saying liberalism is the best, so we need to impose it.
Like they literally like had a set of ideas. Now many of the ideas were wrong, and they said, let's orient a political, economic, and cultural project around a set of ideals that we think is going to work out. Now the ideas weren't good. It has not worked out. Yeah, I see someone in chat just said this, and I was just in my head thinking about John Goodman from Big Lebowski saying at least it's an ethos. And I think the thing too with an ethos is like you can. It creates an object of critique. So even if you look at, leftist versus neocon debates back in the day, you're able to have a conversation when someone posits a positive project, even if it's not a project that you align yourself with. But I worry, and again, you know so much more about these people. I worry that, but I worry because they don't have a positive project. There's not really a lot to critique in a substantial way. So they can avoid having to reckon with anything because they're just kind of like pigs in their own nihilistic shit rolling around all day.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is kind of the problem with debate culture as it existed on YouTube. Now, like I got my start kind of by doing some debates on some stuff like, Medicare for all and, Bernie Sanders electability. And, my background is somebody who I ran for office in 2014 and then I became a kind of like political operative, which is a standard path that people take where you run for office, then you work as campaign consultant. I worked at Committee of Urban Affairs. Just so I have like a campaign and policy. This is an archetype that exists in politics, right? And it was 2019 where I made this stuff as a lark because I turned away from the Democratic Party during the Bernie. Like I was in the Democratic Party before the Bernie Sanders movement came. And when Bernie's movement came, I said, this is it. This is where we should go. And I kind of stepped away from the machine Democratic Party because they were all in for the status quo that we still see. I bring up this context because I got into debates as part of my content creation. And one of the things I noticed very quickly is that a lot of the people that do debates don't actually do debates. Like they don't have a proposition that we are both, that they're the con and I'm the pro. It's more like they bring someone on and they determine based on how they're feeling that day, if they're going to say this person's smart and therefore it'll be like a conversation, or say this person is stupid and just start yelling at them and trying to humiliate them or embarrass them. There's not really like an idea being posited. And then this is like, we have stipulations or ideas and a moderator and mutual respect and any kind of like civility or comedy. It's just like, no, I agree. This person's a fucking arsler, or this person is like one of the smartest people and they have really good takes. And so it's not really debate. I don't even really know how to describe it.
No, it's not. It's
how would you describe this phenomenon just to make it more of an interview?
I mean, I see people in the chat, someone said like sophist, someone's talking about rhetoric. But yeah, in like a sort of boringly classical philosophical sense, you have like sophistry, a form of rhetoric in which people are really good at speaking in a way that garners them attention and makes them seem smart. But ultimately, kind of like the nihilism you were talking about before, it doesn't aim at anything. And the interesting thing, when you look at like the earliest, at least in the Western canon, debates and like Socratic dialogues, they are all people having conversations aiming at something similar. They might not agree on how to get there, but like Plato's Republic, a massive dialogue.
The foundational virtue.
The whole thing is they're just like, okay, what would a just city be? Exactly. And everyone's agreeing, like, we want the city to be just, so let's talk about it. We're going to have different ideas. And I think that there's a lack of like an overarching, again, let's just say ethos or whatnot. And it becomes, I mean, you see this in like all the Jubilee stuff these days. It just becomes such a level of self-parody.
That's I'm talking about.
And it's really, really bad. I've spoken to some of the people who are in the like Jubilee cast now, and some of the more left-leaning people there, I think, are like good, cool, nice young people who are trying to do something interesting. But when you have like a debate, especially when they do their series where like two different groups of people are there, and it'll be like homophobes on one side, gay people on the other side. The question is, gay people shouldn't exist. Where's the middle ground? And it's like, what are you fucking doing? There's not a middle ground in these sorts of things. We're just creating pure spectacle. And like spectacle sells. and people want to see people yell and disagree. And I think it's just evolved into that. I do think if anything now, it's getting so bad that I feel like it is devolving into self-parody. Like, I think a couple years ago, there was a little bit more of the sense of like that some of these people were serious. And
well, a lot of them got sex scandals now, as well. So their personal,
that'll take you down.
Yeah, their personal brand, messaging the 17-year-old Discord kitten, is that hurts your credibility.
Yeah, people have gotten mad at me for saying this before about certain creators, but like, I also think too, it's just always a sign. If no one serious wants to talk to you, you're probably not a serious person. And a lot of these people create their own debate ecosystems where the only time someone who's at all serious or interesting ends up there is like by mistake, when it's like some older academic or something who has no idea what this thing is anyways. Right. That's, I just think I desperately want there to be some aspect of political, like digital political culture that doesn't just evolve into that sort of form of debate. Because what worries me then is like, what happens when people that come up mainlining that sort of content and develop a political identity in that debate zone? What happens when they get involved with real politics? What happens if they get involved in organizing? How are they going to manage to navigate and compromise and listen to people that aren't like them?
This is something
that's their political formation.
This is something that I think you're a great person to talk about, which is I have kind of mentally realized that in the streaming, this is the era of streaming where live content directly to an audience is going to be the dominant form, and then short form content obviously as well, that Zohran Mamdani has deployed so well. And if you look at Mexico, if you want a hopeful example, you look at Mexico, where AMLO and Claudia Sheinbaum were able to get around the Mexican elites and do streams and do policy discussions with the Mexican people. And now hundreds of thousands and millions of Mexicans are constantly tuning in to their 3-hour policy discussions directly from.
I didn't know this till recently. I feel very naive.
Okay.
No, I didn't realize that Sheinbaum was a streamer. Yeah,
she's
really changed the game.
AMLO is the streamer. She's more of like she does it because he did it.
Yeah,
but and she's like the AMLO is the, like, how do I put this? Very rough around the edges populist, and she's like the ascended populist. She's like a PhD in climate scientist, and like, she has got a very populist left-wing politics, but she's like the most perfect candidate you can imagine. And they're extremely popular. I think they had last I saw, they had like an 87% approval rating when she was fighting Trump. And the left is just completely dominating. They're just amending their constitution to make, they're getting rid of the, very conservative appointed judges in the Supreme Court. Like, Mexico is winning completely on the left. They have a real populist center-left project using these tools we're talking about. And I think with Zohran and in New York City, you could see a world where we do that here, where we go around the Democratic Party elites, we go around the media gatekeepers, and we build this really positive cross-racial, working class movement that draws in all the different disparate parts of the left. And he successfully did that, right? Working class people, immigrants, young people, and of course, the overeducated intelligentsia like you and me, who we've struggled to make that coalition stick. And he did it, or he is doing it. And he's doing it because of that short form content. And I'll bring this all together in that I have accepted that stan culture is the culture of the internet. That we are going to have to accept that we need to have figureheads that are attractive and popular, are charismatic, and they're going to represent these movements. I don't want to call it Bonapartism, but it's got an element of that, right? Where you have a figurehead who's super popular, has the support of, so it's like almost you have this big, very popular figurehead with a populist grassroots base, but that person kind of embodies the ideas. And we've seen that with Bernie Sanders, right? Bernie Sanders embodies democratic socialism as an ideal in America, and I have my criticisms of him. And he's extremely popular. He's the most popular candidate with self-identified moderates. The most popular politician in America is Bernie Sanders. The most popular politician with self-identified moderates is Bernie Sanders. And that only makes sense to me when you think of him not as a collection of just ideas, but also embodying those ideas. And similarly, we have that with Trump. So we have, to deal with what you're saying, which is how do we get people to like engage with these ideas? well, we have to recognize that people deal with ideas as a stand. And just to bring this back to something you can comment on, like, I think you saw that with the Democratic Party in 2024, is that a lot of Democratic Party voters who were mad at principled left-wingers against Gaza and genocide, they had a stand relationship with Kamala. It wasn't based on like political ideas. It was based on, I like her and what she represents to me. And you are blocking a, black woman from succeeding. And why do you care about this policy so much?
Yeah, I mean, the Kamala thing is interesting because like a really vapid person politically and ideologically. So when people were really into Kamala, it's like, what are you like really into? You're either into the fact that you think like she's cool, sure, or you're just really into the fact that this is someone who's not Donald Trump. Okay, sure, why not? But I think the stand thing, and maybe to even be a little more broad there, the overall sense of parasociality is like clutch. Because think about like who was the one person that was a part of the last election that people liked? It was Tim Walz. Why did people like Tim Walz? Because he just seemed like a real guy.
Well, he went out there and he spoke unguardedly.
Yes, and he did, and when he spoke at the convention, what did people react to with Tim Walz? Like his
the best speech at the convention, by the way.
Yeah. And then when people like when they cut to like his kid and his sons crying, like that just seemed very real. And I was actually the week before they picked him, I was in Minnesota visiting family, and at that point, it didn't seem like it was gonna be Walz. All of these like very centrist, moderate, by no means radical folks I know in Minnesota and family up there love that guy, are obsessed with him.
But then they turned him into a eunuch.
They did.
So that's what happened.
And they didn't let him be a person. But I'm just saying, like, that's what the thing we like in politicians, the thing we like in online personalities. And again, like, I think the ability to easily articulate what someone's about is really clutch. Zohran did a really good job of that because, and this was like in the Bernie campaign in 2020, he did a really good job of that as well. Anyone could give 3 to 4 bullet points, describing that person's project. You believe the stuff that they said. And Bernie's different in this way, but a lot of the younger folks also just seem like a good hang.
Oh, yeah,
and that's what we want. We want people that seem like they are good hangs. And that's why, like, looking at the like Democratic roster for the coming years, not a lot of good hangs. Who wants to like hang out with Gavin Newsom? He seems like someone who's gonna like put you in a basement and skin you.
So, okay, I'm gonna give you my personal spin, which I don't know that a lot of other people have looked at. But I think the reason why Zohran did so well isn't just that he's a good hang and he's hot, which is all true, and he's intelligent and he's got good policies.
All true. Yeah.
It's that he's got sharp elbows in the sense that he went to yell at the guy who was lading ice when people tried to like browbeat him into saying globalized intifada is terrorism. He said no. And he actually was willing to, he had that angry gear. He had that fight back. It wasn't just like, I'm everybody's friend. It was like, I'm really cool. I'm fun to hang out with. But if you fuck with me, there's going to be pushback. So he had
because he didn't cave.
Range. He didn't cave. Exactly.
And I think that's the thing that a lot of Democrats do is like the second that they get pushback, they immediately cave or concede. And I think one of the best examples of that was Zohran was, his interview on Colbert was so good because Colbert just like, basically did the like, so you're Nazi, right?
Studio notes came in, you could tell.
Yeah. And the way that Zohran, like, he didn't flinch, he didn't get defensive. He calmly explained his position relative not just to talking points, but to experiences that he had. And then you have like Brad Lander next to him, like a very outwardly Jewish politician who is a little more, towards the center than Zohran.
Who served as double or a bodyguard, he stood in front of the bullets.
But, and you have him there being like, yeah, exactly. I don't see eye to eye fully, but what he's saying makes sense. Like, you can just be a principled person and not give in to everything. And that's, this is the most cliche thing to say, because we all know this, of course. But, it's just that example of the Democrats constantly conceding, constantly not just standing on any sort of business, while the Republicans have done that so successfully for over a decade now.
Can I back you up on this? Because
please do.
For me, the moment when I realized he was a generational talent was during his, well, actually, I've actually supported him for 5 years.
Yeah.
Because he first got on my radar because he actually, ironically, he made a video for the Gravel Institute.
Yeah, that's the first time I saw him as well.
And it was on Vienna housing. Now, I lived in Vienna. My longtime partner is Viennese. And so I know about the Gemeingebau and the housing and the public transit and the no homeless and the, 60% of people live in social housing and it's the most livable city in the world. And it works really well and there's no problems and they have rent control and they've had it since the mid 90s. And there's plenty of abundant, high quality housing for working class people at low rent. And what's different between Vienna and it's the fastest growing German speaking city and all sorts of other shit. So all the points that people try to make against these policies, we have a city that we could look at has succeeded and they've had socialist mayors for 100 years, other than when the Nazis were in charge. So
yeah,
like we have these things that exist. So when he brought that up, and I'm a big advocate of studying our own socialist history, both here and abroad. When he made that video and he brought that up, I was like, this guy is fucking, I got to watch this guy. And so the moment I saw his first, mayoral campaign ad, I was promoting him. And the reality is about him. And what made me really like him is when he was asked, do you believe Israel has a right to exist? Instead of looking like he was caught, he said, I believe that it has a right to exist as a state with equal rights. And all he did is he said, he went right after the heart of their point, which is they believe you need to say that Israel should be an apartheid state where Jewish supremacy rules under color of law. And instead of debating about Jewishness or debating about this other things, he got to the heart of the disagreement. We believe in pluralism. We believe in freedom of conscience. We believe in equality. So I believe in an Israel where everybody has equal rights. And they are just completely fucking flummoxed because they can't argue against it. And instead of being as you said, accepting that frame and acting defensive or acting like he believes in something that's controversial, he actually promoted his most controversial take as common sense, and they were completely defeated. And that is the talent. He is able to.
Here's a question I have for you, if you don't mind me asking, because you know more about the insider political stuff. How realistic is it that they're going to take him out? You know what I mean? Not take him out, but you know what I mean?
You mean
it makes me very nervous. Yeah. Because it feels, in just reading about it, it seems like on the one hand, I read something yesterday that was from a bunch of real estate investors in New York. And it sounded like they were starting to soften up and be like, it seems like this might happen anyway. So we're going to go with it, maybe throw some money at him. But then on another side, it does feel like a lot of powerful Democrats have really coalesced around not letting it be him and supporting an abusive piece of shit instead.
Couple things. First of all, I think they're dead scared because if you look at the data, and this is what I always try to do. I try not to just be in my own intellectual world. I'm constantly talking to regular people. I'm constantly looking at other people's point of view. I recognize, if you think about politics as much as I do, you are a freak. This is the first thing whenever I was hiring organizers and training field organizers or training people new to professional political work, I would say to them, if you think about politics every day, you are weird. If you think about politics every week, you are a weirdo. And so you need to accept that you are in a different bubble. If you're posting about politics or tweeting about politics multiple times a month, you're a fucking weirdo. And it's okay to be a weirdo. It just recognize that you need to get outside your bubble and start talking to people that don't have the same preoccupation of politics as a hobby that you do. And so I do this preamble just to say, I look at the data, I talk to regular people, and what I look at Zohran is he's actually tapping into where the rank and file actually is. This is his strength. His strength is he's not actually leading on these issues. He's actually just coalescing. He's taking figurehead status for ideas that are already mature. And what's mature in the Democratic Party is to stand up to Israel and to sympathize with Palestinians more than Israelis. There's unbelievable amount of evidence at this point that it is a tiny, only between 10 and 50% of Democrats support Israel at this point. There is a strong disapproval of Israel. So he's coalescing something that already exists. Same thing with all these other things. Anti-billionaire. 80% of people support that. Go down the line. He's standing in places where there's a massive gap, massive demand, massive gap. And that is to say, I expect them to do everything they can to destroy him using the Corbyn model, but I don't think they have the juice.
Well, and wouldn't it just be...
And they don't have good candidates to run against him either. They have Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, which are heavily flawed.
Horrible.
I think he's going to win.
And I do think strategically, it would be a really bad look if the Democratic Party so brazenly kneecaps someone who represents all of the things you just said. It provides so much more fuel to the fire of, hey guys, these are really just a bunch of billionaire dick lickers who don't give a fuck about working people anyways. And they're showing you that right now.
So if I've ever made any errors in my advocacy, it's not making clear the distinction between the quote Democratic Party and Democratic Party voters or people who identify as the Democrats. You see what I mean? Like I have sometimes been like the Democratic Party is blah, 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 blah. And I think a lot of people feel like you're attacking them as opposed to who see as a political operative. What I mean is the political operatives, the elites, the consultants, the senior members of the party. They believe that. That's what I mean when I say Democratic Party. I don't mean the millions of people that vote once every couple of years.
Same.
Like, you know what I mean?
To be clear,
So,
well, and of course, too, the people that vote every couple of years, like we are pretty disempowered. You know, I'm not taking it out on the voter who doesn't have a lot of say in this whole thing anyway. So shouts to voters.
The other thing is they're right about something really important, which is that the Democratic Party is the only alternative to the Republican Party.
Yes.
And as much as the problem, in my opinion, the reason why the Republicans have been so successful is because of the Democratic Party's failure to offer opposition, rhetorically, ideologically, and physically. The Republican Party is an existential threat to the world. Noam Chomsky, who I have, again, criticisms of, but I like a lot of his work as well, said that the Republican Party is the most dangerous political formation in human history. And I agree. And I think you're seeing it. They're actively trying to put extra taxes on renewable energy products. They're trying to subsidize oil and gas. They're creating a Gestapo where they're going to increase ICE agents by 5 times. They're demolishing cities and education funding. And they're, this represents an existential threat to humanity.
And I'll say this in case some people watching have been this guy as well. I've been the guy before who's really thought are they really that different? They're both two parties controlled by capital. One has a slightly different cultural, set of values. It could do some bad stuff, but this is proving that position very wrong. I did not have, concentration camp in the Everglades on my prediction card for this year. Much of the stuff that's happening is just so. It is on another level.
I don't think you're very wrong. And this is me trying to to refine my thing. I don't think you're very wrong to say they're the same. I think the problem is there's a lot of actually good Democrats that do exist, even in political office.
Yeah.
The problem is those are the people that a lot of people look at as leaders, and they are not. They are AOC does not have Democratic Party institutional power at all. She has a seat she won, and she's got a big social media following, and she's popular on media, but she does not have Democratic Party institutional power. None whatsoever, because they hate her. And if they could, they'd destroy her, but they can't. So they tolerate her existence because they're forced to. But the Democratic Party itself is an active collaborator with Donald Trump fascism, and they aren't that different. Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams are Trump supporters. They are. They are collaborators with Trump. They are not fighting Trump. And, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they've always, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, they all said, we want a strong Republican Party. And that has been their mantra.
That was great.
So you're right.
Well, and to
feel that way. They are the same, but it isn't every Democrat, which is the confusion that people have.
And we do. And again, it's hard. The older one gets, the harder it is to feel hopeful. But the Democrats have a shocking amount of solid people in office. Many of them don't have power, but even in the past year, I've been oh, fuck yeah. Chris Murphy, guy who's saying some stuff, someone who's there.
I'm a little bit harsher against the social liberals than most people, because I think they're very fraudulent, to be honest, but
I like that they say stuff that we can at least hold them accountable for. But the thing about Mamdani that makes me excited is there are other candidates out there with a similar ilk and ethos that people are excited about. And I know that she's going to be facing a tough race, but my friend, have you talked to Kat Abu Ghazaleh?
Kat and I are in discussions. I criticized her a couple weeks ago because her fucking dumb campaign manager, I'm gonna tell you this. Her dumb campaign manager was like subtweeting Zohran or being like, he won't condemn globalize the Intifada. Yeah. So I was super pissed. I saw that. And I always tell the truth about everyone. This is my, sorry everybody, but you should know this about me. So I saw that. I said, I called them out. I quote tweeted him and I said, hey, does Kat know that her campaign manager is doing this? So, and this is what I like about Kat. She reached out to me, texted me. She said, hey, we're going to talk about this, blah, 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 blah. Because she's Palestinian. And I was like, there's no way she would have authorized this statement. Like, no. And she has a difficult tightrope to walk. I'm reasonable. I'm not a complete asshole. But I'm also not going to let people the day before the elections, do this like, oh, he's anti-Semitic thing because he supports Palestinian protesters, and it's not something
I didn't see that.
Yeah, of course you did, but it's fine. So I like Kat.
But all I have to say is I like Kat, and I think that it's, and again, we'll see what happens. But I'm excited that there are people out there running, and I do think, and this is going to sound very libbish of me, but one of the hard things is that I think a lot of folks feel so disempowered and disenfranchised from the political process that the thought of ever participating, and you've been in this process yourself, so you know about this, is very scary, overwhelming, whatever.
No, so the Democratic Party hates you. Like, let me tell you an
but that's what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Well, no. All I was going to say is I think that it is nice too. So I sat in on Kat's. She had some Zoom office hours a few weeks ago, and I awkwardly sat in on it as someone who has nothing to do with her campaign or that district of Illinois. But a few different people called in to chat with her who are young people. One person was from Pennsylvania. I think another person was in Illinois, who are like trying to run and do stuff and are looking at that as a model. And I find a small amount of hope in people seeing the crack of possibility for them to participate in the system.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, hope is, there's the Gramsci quote that I always lean on, which is like pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will, which means that we should judge the world as it exists, but in our heart is an quenchable flame of ambition. Yes. You know what I mean? So but that's not really how people are. You're a weirdo if you're like that. Most people need to have a feeling like there's momentum, like that their efforts are bearing fruit, which is very normal, right? And I feel like Zohran is giving that space. And the Democratic Party establishment is weaker than it's ever been. So I feel like, in many ways, I've made this comparison before. Maybe it's a cold take that you've heard before, but I think of Bernie Sanders as the left's Goldwater, which is a person who brought these ideas to the fore, started to organize a very passionate, cadre of strong supporters that are building up these institutions behind the scenes. Obviously, he wasn't able to do it all and win in the same couple cycles, but he created all of these, inheritors of his viewpoints that are going to carry it to the mainstream. And then it'll be the second bite at the apple, which was Ronald Reagan for the conservative movement. We're going to have somebody, whether it's AOC or who else, who carries that through to fruition and actually wins. And I think Zohran is part of that greater Bernie Sanders bounty and DSA itself. Those are the institutions that are building themselves up with these victories. And that is what's going to carry us on to greater things than we even think are possible. I think the other thing, and just to close this loop, one of the dumbest arguments I consistently hear is about political plausibility. The one lesson you should learn from Donald Trump is we have no idea what is politically plausible. Okay? Don't let people say, oh, I like your ideas and your policies make sense and they work, but I don't think it could get it through the Senate or X, Y, and Z thing. That is not a valid critique of an idea or a movement, because a lot of ideas and movements that you think are impossible happen. In my own life, I saw the way gay people were accepted as a 41-year-old. When I was growing up versus seeing that the way that attitudes towards gay people have changed fundamentally over that short period of my life, something that got accomplished, this year would have been impossible to imagine 25 years ago. And 25 years is an eye blink in the course of history.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I think, not to get overly philosophical or esoteric there, but if I have like any sort of philosophical framework or position that I abide by, it's that often politics and political philosophy is like thinking about the impossible stuff when it happens. And so many of the political, social, cultural movements that we all look back on now as these cool foundational, formational things, like before the thing happened, it was impossible. And it's the sort of collective will of individuals who want to try to do an impossible thing that makes stuff happen. And I think when one loses that sight, when one falls into the trap of like, we can only do things that are pragmatically possible relative to that which has come before via minor, changes here and there, you've already lost.
That makes me curious. How do you describe your political outlook or philosophy? Where do you like place yourself with these labels? What do you put up on yourself? Like, I'll start off myself.
Yeah.
Like, just so you have a little space,
Yeah.
Like, the term that I hate is called a centrist Marxist, which, because nobody knows what that means, but it basically is referring to revolution versus reform. And I kind of look at the way Lenin talked about it, which is reforms that are non-reformist reforms. Like, reformism is the idea that we will achieve this through bourgeois electoralism alone. I don't think we're going to get socialism by doing elections and electing Zohran Mamdani and AOC, but it's about creating space to allow class consciousness to thrive and class conscious politics to achieve victories so that optimism can grow. That will lead to revolutionary change in the course of history. So I am not against revolution. If revolution happens, I'll be jumping on the barricades. But I also don't think we should look down on participating in elections as purely, capturing this energy and focusing it back into the bourgeois Democratic Party. I think that's way too simplistic. It doesn't understand the way that political movements tend to work and operate. And just, in my study of history, it seems that revolutions usually succeed in periods of frustrated reform, not in periods under crackdowns and right-wing retrenchment. It's rather, the Bolsheviks won from the Mensheviks and from the provisional government. They didn't seize power from the Tsar. Lenin was able to return to Russia because of the provisional government and the Germans letting him do it, not because, he didn't lead a revolutionary vanguard from, Switzerland. So we need to have people like Zohran in power to make more revolutionary demands. So I kind of consider myself, a hybrid between, some sort of more revolutionary socialist and a, Demsock scumbag.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
I think that
make
makes sense. No, that does make sense to me because I come from a world where I spent a lot of years in academia, and in academia, everyone is a bloodthirsty revolutionary communist who only believes in the most radical theories. And I say this as someone who has been this person. So if you're that person, yeah, I am you. I love you. But so I've been in that world, and I've seen how it's kind of easy to espouse those ideals when you're and two, I think it's great to like teach and research about the hardcore stuff so they can give us an orientation. But I've seen also what happens, and again, I have been this person when the academic Marxist starts organizing or getting involved politically, and you see the absolute contradiction between I read a lot of Lenin and I'm organizing a tenants union, very different things. So theoretically, I'm in the most boring way possible, a Marxist with revolutionary proclivities,
of course.
But practically, I think that a lot of what we can do and should be doing is create the groundwork for revolutionary activity, which we're not in right now. And don't get me wrong, like if there was a good model of revolutionary political praxis or a revolutionary oriented party that had power in this country, I'd be all for it.
Oh,
but friends, it doesn't exist.
Yes, it does not.
And we have to accept that it doesn't exist.
Well, the reason why it doesn't exist is we have an incredibly powerful political police.
Yes.
And so if you try to do something like that, they're going to find you and disappear your ass to federal prison for the rest of your life. And, you'll be writing letters. Like that's the reality, or they'll just kill you. And they've done it many, many times. So like the idea that, we're just not being pure enough in our ideology it does not bear, you're not actually listening to what revolutionary leaders of the past have said, which is that you need to really understand the practical logistics of what you're trying to accomplish in the real world.
Yeah.
Like, how are you feeding the troops? That's not in the book.
No. So I think that like And I think that we can all maybe accept that that it is okay and it's not contradictory to both, again, be someone that is ideologically and theoretically a revolutionary Marxist and in very practical, on the ground terms, pragmatic about identifying points of contradiction at the local and national level and nudging things in whatever direction are going to put us in a better position long term. And that could be like even stuff like education. Like, you know what you're not going to have? You're not going to have a revolutionary vanguard in a country that decimates their system of education. Not going to have
Correct.
that.
Right.
If people can't go to the doctor, if everyone is in debt because of education or healthcare, if people can't get around or use transportation. So I just think there's a way that like the important thing is maybe sometimes one can look at those who see kind of social democratic reform as the end game and be like, oh, I don't want to be like them. But you can be on the same journey. You're just sort of setting the table for the meal that is to come. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I also don't think anybody thinks it is the end game. I think it's like,
I hope not.
It's like give a mouse a cookie, you know, and then we'll ask for a glass of milk. Like, we're not asking for this shit to stop asking for shit. We're going to take it, improve our positions, and then do more. You know, it's like an army wins a battle, then therefore they take over a region. They now have the access to the resources of that region to mount further campaigns. Like, that's the whole point of what we're trying to do. And to give like a more practical historical example, it's like the Vietnam War, right? Like the radical position was to join the war on the side of North Vietnam, right? You know, and to purge the colonizers and to purge their sycophants of the South Vietnamese government. But what the North Vietnamese actually needed us to do is pull out. And similar in Gaza, obviously I'd love to do a humanitarian intervention into Tel Aviv, but the reality is what the Palestinians need us to do is withdraw American support, diplomatic, economic, military, from Israel, and that will accomplish the goal. And as members of the American political family, it's our job to create as many politicians that are going to say no to Israel as we can. And so I don't care what kind of communist you think you are. Your job is to get people like Zohran Mamdani in every fucking office you can, because that's what's going to give the global South the room to breathe and protect against, the American interventions that are so actively killing people. And so I think that is like the kind of practical example of North Vietnam was able to win the Vietnam War because we stopped intervening. And similarly, that should be our project as far as Palestine and Gaza, which is just pull the U.S. empire back and give these spaces room to resist on their own.
And maybe to tie this back to something we were talking about before, I do think then this is where there's a political value in stuff like what's the word I'm looking for here? Sorry, I got distracted by a comment in the chat. Yeah, by propaganda in the chat. I think there is a value in political education in a broad way. I think that there's a responsibility that folks like yourself and myself and other people with a platform has to not create political fandoms, but to really work hard to both better understand systems of power ourselves and help people better understand those systems of power. When I look at some of the, I guess, more liberal coded political media at their worst, they just create little, like, so for example, I like baseball.
Olivia Juliana, I listen to like podcasts about a baseball team I like, and all the people that host those podcasts, they're often wrong because the baseball team sucks, but they want to be like, but they're going to be good. That's fine when it's baseball. It's not fine when it's politics. It's not fine when it's like a media infrastructure that kind of just surrounds the core of the Democratic Party leadership. So, and to get back to the debate thing, when digital political culture isn't about education, but it's about entertainment in terms of debating, fighting, point scoring, all that sort of shit, all that's happening is people are less and less informed and less participating in dialogues and conversations that are going to help them understand stuff. Right. And I know for me, like, that's the reason, like, I made a horrible life choice and stayed in school for a really long time and went into debt to study philosophy, is because I had the experience of being like, holy shit, some of these ideas actually make sense of things that are happening. Right.
I'm currently on this big Frederick Jameson kick. I have a lot more videos coming out where I'm going to be talking about stuff that he does, but he has this concept of like cognitive mapping, which sounds kind of heady, but is really just like the idea that capitalism and neoliberal culture make it really hard for us to see the connections between all the stuff that's happening.
Right.
So what we need is a map that shows us that. Yeah. And like, that's such an important pedagogical project. And I do think that's an area, and this is to get back to like the first thing we talked about when I came on. That's such an important part about like what a left media ecosystem can be. That's more than stand culture. That's more than infighting. That's more than like telling people what team you're on or something.
Yeah, and I think that for me, the analogy of team sports is very apt. But I also think, and this is to the credit of Gen Z and millennials, and I want to make this generational because I think the generations are also material. Because people sometimes on the left will criticize you if you talk about like, oh, this is happening in this generation and that generation, but oh, we should only be talking about class and material, reality. And it's like, well, these generations had common shared experiences. They have common shared, frames of reference. And so they tend to have coalescing views on certain things because of the life that they lived was separate and different than the life that, say boomers did. And a lot of your politics can form up in your young adulthood based on the conditions that you're currently experiencing. And then you kind of harden and round those positions. And I think our generations are much more skeptical of pure stand culture around politicians. I actually think it's older generations that are actually more in that model, the mass media model. Whereas our generations, like the reason why they were so excited about Zohran is because of his policies. It wasn't just because he's good at making shorts. What was in the shorts was substantive and was speaking in a way that they don't get from other politicians. And so they were able to be smarter. I actually think that our generations are breaking free of those stand culture problems that we're talking about a little bit more than older generations are. I mean, like, look at the way that older generations talk about politics. They talk about like, oh, James Clyburn endorsed Cuomo.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton endorsed Cuomo, and there's not substance behind it, right? And in fact, people were yelling at AOC to endorse Zohran earlier and Bernie to endorse him earlier because of his policies. They were not saying, I'm going to hang back until AOC endorses. They were saying, hey, AOC, you better fucking endorse Zohran or else. It was the opposite of the stand culture that you're talking about.
Well, and I think that was like, again,
helpful and positive.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best parts, obviously, and it ended in tragedy, of course, of the 2020 Bernie campaign was the way in which, to an extent, the ideas and the policies became the star. Like when I would see, in LA, people wearing Bernie shirts, the shirts all said like Medicare for all, college for all, whatever it might be. But like there was like,
I have that
4
shirt.
or 5. Yeah, I forget which one. I have one of them, but I think that's kind of what we need, and better to have people standing for political principles and ideas that transcend individual personalities. Because again, and we've seen this, whether it's a Kamala, whether it's a Mayor Pete type, when people just stand the person, it's so empty and doesn't go anywhere. And doesn't push things.
I tend to think of, how politics is going to go for the rest of our lives based on how Democratic primary voters react to the AOC versus Buttigieg primary. If the Democratic Party picks Pete Buttigieg or someone like him, like Andy Bashir, we are fucking cooked. I mean, and I will actually become kind of a doomer for the rest of my life because those people believe in absolutely nothing. They are, sounds good, Mike. They, like, for example, Pete Buttigieg, there was a famous thing when he was running for president, which the absolute gall and narcissism of being the mayor of the 4th largest city in Indiana and losing, being the worst statewide performer in the Indiana. When he ran for treasurer, he was the worst Democrat in the entire state as far as statewide in Indiana. So just a total political dud. The arrogance of going to the DNC and, failing horribly, except raising $500,000 from donors, and then running for president. The gall and hubris of that.
Wait, I see people in the chat asking this. I'm curious about this. Can you say more about why you equate Bashir with Buttigieg? Because again, I know that you pay more attention to this, but because Bashir, I've had a soft spot for Bashir.
See, I don't have soft spots.
And that's good. That's principled. I'm soft.
Okay. I just, because I'm involved in local Democratic politics for over a decade, I understand that there's certain things that Democrat politicians at the local level do that mean absolutely nothing. And one of them, for example, is like having the support of labor or saying like kind of generically pro-labor shit as a way of like signaling that they care about the trade union movement. And all Democrats at the local level do that. But then when you're in an actual position of power, what do you actually achieve? And I think what I like about Andy Bashir, I think Andy Bashir is smart in the sense of like not throwing trans people under the bus and recognizing that is, but that is the exact type of Democratic Party I'm worried about, which is they are going to throw out kind of like what people have called social issues that are important, but fundamentally do not question capital or question the economic structure of our society. And they use that to signal progressivism that does not exist. It's like, I'm supporting trans people, and then you fill in the 9 other progressive views that you have because he's signaling progressivism with that take. But in reality, when you actually examine him, he is a Nepo baby, son of another governor. It's the same thing with Gretchen Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer, her father was the Blue Cross Blue Shield CEO.
Great company. And
then the reason why she ran for office, and you can go Google this and find it, is her mentor is the current Blue Cross Blue Shield CEO. He recruited her to run. And the reason why is because there was a Bernie Sanders candidate, Abdul Al-Sayed, who is a huge
I remember that guy.
He's running for Senate.
He was a real one.
He's running for Senate this time.
So he's running again? Awesome.
Yeah. But she was basically recruited by the Blue Cross Blue Shield CEO to stand against him and basically block a Medicare for all candidate for governor of Michigan. So if you are going, oh wow, she ate chips on fucking TikTok sluttily or whatever people were like, promoting. I'm not saying this misogynistically, just the way it was described by others. That's not real politics to me. Like, you have to be somebody who is advocating for real progressive policies beyond gestures. And listen, he's great for Kentucky. I'm not saying if I was in Kentucky, I'd be an Andy Bashir supporter big time. When we're talking about the National Democratic Party and the direction we need to go as a country, I think we need to end the idea of like some guy with a Southern drawl who said one nice thing about trans people is going to be the progressive champion we need. And if you're a left winger like me, I'm going to be trying to destroy those people's reputation up until the point that we win whatever inter-party squabble we're having. They won't do the same. Like, they're not going to throw themselves in front of Mondami. Has he spoken about Mondami? Has he come out and said he supports him? No. You need to let these, like, if he does something like that, then I will maybe reevaluate. But until I see like real shit, I'm not going to let general good vibes, allow me to promote somebody like that. I just have a very hard-nosed perspective on the party fractures. I think that the left is too nice, and it's going to allow itself to get maneuvered into a Corbyn-like situation where we trust these people, and when they have power, I don't know how closely you followed that.
Oh yeah, I was living in the UK when that happened. Yeah, so sadly, I followed it a lot, and it sucked.
That's what the playbook they're trying to run with Mondami. That's the playbook they're going to try with whoever the progressive person is in the primary for president 2028. I think it'll be AOC. Maybe it won't be. We need to be
sorry. I like my audio cut out for a second. Did you say you think it'll be AOC in 2028?
At least at the progressive side.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think it'll be her.
I'm gonna alienate this entire audience and now. I'm gonna say something that ensures I never get invited back and I become an enemy of the Central Committee's community. No, this isn't about AOC. I kind of think that the argument can be made that the best viable option is JB Pritzker.
I mean, listen, I've said that before.
Okay, so I didn't know your Pritzker take, and this is one that I find people are very hot and cold.
The thing about Pritzker is,
I knew that people will get mad at me in the chat. I saw one person.
The thing about Pritzker, like during the Veep stakes, I had Pritzker number 1, Waltz number 2. And I was very anti-Bashir Shapiro as a Pennsylvanian, no longer. But I knew him when he was I've known Shapiro personally since he was a state rep, since he was a county commissioner for Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, which is north of Philly, like one of the collar counties. I've known him that whole time. He sucks. He is terrible. He seems practically a Republican. Terrible, yeah. A lot of his support comes from like moderate Republicans. There's this, I could get really into the weeds with Pennsylvania politics and the history of moderate Republicans. But the point is, if it's somebody like that, we're fucking cooked. And the thing about Pritzker is maybe I just don't think he's got the juice. It's
That's
hard to be an
I do
anti-billionaire
wonder,
billionaire. You know, it's hard to be an anti-billionaire billionaire.
It is. It's a weird one because you can see the argument that like he obviously comes from the for folks that don't know, like the Hyatt hotel fortune, but he's in a way he's like a late blooming fail son in terms of being one of like the least successful members of his family. I think that there's
I guess think that can be true at this point.
Yeah, but like, yeah, but I guess when I think,
Illinois governor, that's like fucking peak.
It's about as good as you can get for Illinois politics. But there is the part of me that, and you know, are you like from like Pennsylvania originally? That's in your DNA.
I'm an Air Force brat, but I spent my adult life in Pennsylvania, and I lived.
Okay.
You know, I went to Pitt, and then I lived in Philly. I lived in Lehigh Valley. I lived in Harrisburg. So I've been literally I know the state like the back of my hand.
Okay, that's great. And the reason I say that is because, you know, I do think about the Rust Belt and the Midwest as incredibly important. For pushing things in a direction potentially on the national level.
But here's the thing about the Rust Belt, which I think is not understood by coastal elites, is that it's a very polarized place. It's not a moderate place. So the politics that Pennsylvanians have is either, you know, Summer Lee, socialist. She's the most left-wing congressperson we have in the country. Is the congresswoman a black woman from Pittsburgh, is the most left-wing congressperson. Comes from Pennsylvania. You look at Philadelphia, same thing. They have a very strong left. You know, they had the most famous George Soros DA, Larry Krasner, who is literally who did pro bono work for BLM.
Yeah.
Right. And he is the DA. And by the way, fastest decrease of homicides of any city in America during his administration. I thought.
But you'll never hear that though.
Exactly.
In like any
Philadelphia has had the fastest decline of homicide in its history with the George Soros DA. Point is, the left, and so the Pennsylvania left is either like at far left, or it's like, oh, I think that we should, you know, KKK member, right wing Trump. Tacking to the center, you actually don't get any juice, honestly.
Yeah,
like it doesn't work, and it actually drives down your base. It's the party that actually drives up their base's excitement that wins Pennsylvania, not the other way around. It's not moderation that works. And Josh Shapiro is a rare exception, because his candidate was literally the worst candidate that they've ever had. Like the guy he ran against for governor. So that, you know, it's like he ran against somebody who didn't have any money and was a weirdo.
Yeah. Well, to swing this back a little bit to Big Boy JB, then my only point there would be that I see a world where Pritzker has a little bit of the Walls juice, and that felt weird to say, and that he is someone who is in this weird sweet spot where younger, progressive, and left-leaning folks could get behind him, but Midwestern uncles can also get behind him. And I'm someone that has a lot of Midwestern uncles, so a lot of my electoral politics at the national level.
You're worried about the AOC with the Midwestern uncles.
Well, and my thing with AOC, though, is it feels like it's, I don't know. Yeah, and again, this is me talking to someone like you who's actually worked in party politics and gets the strategy side. Isn't it blowing her shot too early to run now? Shouldn't she like be in Senate first and like do some stuff?
Here's my general feeling. I hear you. I think that's how most political commentators would go. They're very loss averse. They're very risk averse.
Yeah.
But I tend to think that the people that make the big wins make the big bets. And when you line up the how far right the Republicans have gone and the kind of imperial presidency that they're creating with the kind of more abundantity of the centrists, and the fact that they have no clear heir, this is a great time to make that big wild shot, because I actually don't think it hurts you. If you don't win, you're still, you know, in your early 30s, run for something fucking else. Who gives a shit? But you're so unique and you're so separated from the way the Democratic Party has been going that there is a tremendous opportunity for unforeseen energy. And I also think that Zohran is making her a much better politician. I think the problem with AOC is that she leaned too much into the rad lib kind of Elizabeth Warren type, you know, progressive, quote unquote.
Yeah.
You know,
so you're saying like Zohran opens up the door for her to be the best version of herself.
Correct.
And not be like Warren-esque. No, it's a good point.
Warren-esque and also woke, annoying woke. Like Zohran is woke, but he's a good type. Like he says, okay, like trans issues are not something that we should be talking about as our main thing, because who gives a shit? It's 1% of the population. It's very important to the trans people, and we care about them. And so the way he deals with them is he gives them a fucking amazing platform and position on their issue, and he talks directly to advocates for trans people and says, I have your back, I'm with you, and I will defend you. But he doesn't make that his campaign, right? He makes it about those pocketbook issues. He makes it about the issues that is motivating everybody. And I think that is exactly the type of advice she needs, which is like, how do I make this an economic populist first campaign and not I represent BIPOC, women, like if she does
you're winning
that,
me over
she'll fail.
here.
But if she does,
because I think if she goes for it, if she like actually follows that model and actually just fucking goes for it, that seems very doable.
He had a 0%, and he went for it.
I mean, and that's why like I don't want them to screw him, because it really feels like one of those.
They're gonna try.
I know, but it's like a symbolic domino that if that falls in the right direction, and in this, like he really wins, and he at least has some level of success. Like obviously, it's gonna be really hard. The NYPD is gonna do nothing like they did for.
They're gonna blue flu or threaten it. They're gonna do all sorts of shit.
Yeah. But if he manages to stay in that position, if he manages to do a decent job in New York while also keeping a national profile, then like that steam could fuel some stuff. I just hate this thing though, where we always have to just be like, when there's like the one person that has some juice, we have to get so excited and put all of our hope on that, because it's so few and far between we get someone like that. It's sad. The chuds get so many people.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and I thank you for staying on. So, I mean, listen, I'm going to go.
Sorry.
I'm happy to go till noon. If you need to go soon, you let me know.
I'll say the only reason I'm going to leave before noon is because I start streaming at noon, and I'm going to have to go to the bathroom and eat a snack.
Okay, so what do you say to 11:30?
Let's do 11:30. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we extended a chat because I'm having a ball. I think with me.
Also, shout out to this chat. I'm having so much fun.
The chat's great.
Yeah. Like this is what you want to see. It's like healthy pushback, disagreement, some funny stuff, people who like baseball, but overall good vibes. Just you guys are doing it well. Great job.
Well, can we talk about how? Okay, well, just to close this AOC thing. Like, listen. Yeah. I also like Sean Fain. I like a lot of these movement economic populists. And I feel like there's a real demand for it. I have my criticism of AOC. I think the one issue I have with AOC is I think she's a little bit, what's the best way to put it? Henpecked. I think she's a little bit gun shy because she gets attacked from every angle all the time. Yeah. So that, you can only take so much of that mentally before you're like,
I would lose it.
Yeah. Like, because with her, she simultaneously gets like the most horrible psychosexual attacks from the right. She gets called like a fucking radical communist by her own party and attacked constantly by them. And then also she has a brigade of people online who are like, I'm more left than AOC. AOC is a betrayer, trash. So it's hard. You know, you can only take so much of that. So I hope she can like gain hope from Zohran and just be bold and focus on pushing those strong progressive policies that are like attainable to regular people, like they can imagine it. And I think she's got a good shot. I think the left should go for it. And the reason, and just to close this up, and I'll give you why. We don't get very many chances because you need to have a situation where the left is not discredited for some reason, whether it's valid or invalid. You also need to have some sort of like backlash to the right. So the left seems more plausible because the right has failed so horribly. And the Democratic Party isn't locked down around a clear popular successor. So you don't usually line all those things up. And that's why 2028 is why she should go for it. Because let's say she does it and the Democrats win. Well, then that person's going to run for re-election. And then that person's going to have a VP. And then that VP is going to try to run and they're going to be the clear successor. Yeah. So she's going to have to wait at least, 12 years, 16 years. And then maybe there won't be the same kind of conditions. Like your life goes by fast is what I'm saying. Like, especially in politics. So you need to, when you have a shot that you feel like I am the best person to represent this faction of the party and my faction is more popular and I have this chance, you should take the shot.
I'm convinced. I came in a skeptic.
I got Michael.
And I'm convinced.
I'm
convinced. Let's do it. AOC 2028. Let's get some merch made up. Let's find a good campaign song.
Draft Fain, or it could be Sean Fain. Like somebody who's out of left field. I just feel like the left needs to go all in and be ready to be a little bit dirty.
And you know what? I think another good reason now that I'm on your team with this one is with like the Bernie thing, right? In 2020, there was the specter of Biden. And even though a lot of us at a certain point convinced ourselves that he was too old, it wasn't him, early polling, yada, yada, you had a real insider Democratic Party guy has been there for years. It feels like there's not anyone like that now to fuck it up if you did have enough momentum with a left-wing candidate, because like Whitmer, Newsom, Harris, like none of these people are OGs in that way.
The thing is,
Pete,
like,
I guess, but like
Pete is very popular with the like. I called it the hall monitor wing of the party, which is like the guy who sat, the people who sat at the front of the class, the center. You know,
but did you? I'm sure you saw the poll, right, with like his approval with black voters.
Zero.
It was like negative 100%.
That's why she should do
like
it, because it's gonna split the center. Like they're gonna have Pete Buttigieg is gonna appeal to this like upper class liberal who may be kind of skeptical of democratic socialism. But fundamentally,
and no one's going to be that committed to him though, where they won't bail.
Yeah,
if
but he has
there's
no
a better
power.
option.
What the fuck? He's not a governor. He's not. He's no one that is actually like got pressure.
But it
on
seems
anyone.
like he'll be the guy. He'll be the guy that like
He's just-
Obama back channel some Netflix money to or something.
No, absolutely.
But that's it.
But I don't think I don't think he's got the juice. You're talking about Rust Belt. Pete Buttigieg, his 5'8" ass walking around, in Pittsburgh. Like, I don't know if you ever saw him. The reason why I hate Pete so much is he went to like a UAW picket line, and it honestly looked like a Pinkerton detective asking them how long the strike lines were gonna last. You know what I mean? Like, he was trying to come up with his McKinsey memo to how we could break UAW. Like, he has absolutely no juice with regular people. He's purely like part of that intellectual, foam of the.
I mean, he's good at the thing that he does. Like, he's a good spokesperson for party policy. He is good at. I mean, he's one of the only Democrats who's like good at going on Fox News, which is a skill. It's like a necessary evil.
Like there's two.
He's fine at it.
Okay, let me. This is one of my pet peeves, and I'm trying to create as many talking points for people to talk against him as possible. Let me try this one. Basically, he's good at Fox News for liberals watching clips on TikTok. He's not good on Fox News in the sense of like disrupting Fox News's propaganda to its audience, recruiting Republicans to the Democratic Party, shifting their, disrupting their fucking strategy for the day. He goes on, he gets some dunks on some person that he can clip and then post on TikTok so liberals can look at it and feel good. But as far as like what Fox News is trying to accomplish, he doesn't do good on Fox News at all. If anything, he's giving them content, and he fails to provide compelling enough argument that will fundamentally question or shift the way the typical Fox viewer operates with politics. So like being good on Fox News to get clips on TikTok is different than being actually good in my world, which means change politics or cause.
Has anyone ever been good on Fox? Now I'm just wondering.
You can't be good on Fox News. That's my point. It's like going on, oh man, he's really good on Der Stürmer. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, like, wow, he's the best Jew in Der Stürmer. Like, that's not a good. That's not a good
so
example.
People in the chat are bringing up Bernie, and I will say, when they did the Bernie town hall on Fox News, he did solid.
No, but that's what being good on Fox News is, though. It's getting voters to come and watch him and then think of him as, and that's why he's like more popular with even Republicans than other Democratic politicians.
Well,
he's more popular with moderates. That's different.
The person who could be good in Fox News in that way would be Walls. The evidence I'll give you for that is when they did this More Perfect Union thing. Did you see this with Walls where he hung out? I just I was so pissed when that came out because that was after they like killed him and didn't let him speak publicly. But his ability to like shoot the shit agricultural and industrial workers and like the look in their eyes and they were like, oh, this is like a real guy who gets the shit.
Oh yeah,
I do think was important. But
well, that's why
again,
that's why he is a politician, because he's able to do it. But I feel like that's like more retail politics than like the thing about Fox News is it's just propaganda.
Yeah.
Any win you get there is going to be so fleeting. And so what the Democratic Party should be doing is trying to figure out ways of like attacking News Corp and attacking Fox News at a systemic level. In the same way that Donald Trump has attacked universities, when it comes time for us, we should not apologize, and we should, be even more forceful in like organizing unions and disrupting Fox News and disrupting, these right-wing algorithms, and we should be henpecking and going after the algorithms and breaking up these big companies and nationalizing certain industries that are important to the national conversation. And we should be registering AIPAC as a foreign lobby group and doing the things that structurally will undermine our enemies with the same verve and vigor that is being done to us.
There's a comment that I like. I think it's Jessica in the chat. So we should bypass the mainstream media completely. I mean, yeah, I think that some form of doing that sounds good. That kind of
crediting it. Yeah.
Yeah. I better get going, but if I can encourage your audience to do one thing, guys, bully Mike to come on my stream sometime.
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, I will do that because I'm starting to post on other platforms as well, because I've always been like a Twitch only guy, and I never really gave a shit.
Let's get you that YouTube bump.
Yeah,
buddy.
I gotta get the YouTube bump. I gotta get on there and maybe like double stream or whatever, because for some reason people just don't give a shit about Twitch.
It's a weird like cultural thing, and I feel like there's like overlap between the audiences. I'm more of a YouTube person, but I think if there's ways that you can do some YouTube stuff where you're not stretching your production capacity too much, it's definitely worth doing. So we'd love to chat about that. We'd love to get you over there sometime.
All right. Well, thanks for finally coming on. I appreciate you. And
oh my God,
the
so much fun.
conversation was fun and not boring. All right, everybody, make sure that you are subscribing to Michael. Here's Michael Burns. Here's all of the link to the YouTube. And thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, and if folks are bored later, I'll be streaming over on my place later today. Thank you so much. I'll catch you soon.
See you soon. Peace. All right, chat. Okay, let me end this and that. Okay, beautiful. We did it. We did it. Free Palestine. I should have made him say that. I should have gotten him to chant globalize the intifada. All right, well, there you go, chat. Honestly, I love Michael so much. This is the version of me that would exist if I had like gone into philosophy academia. That's my highest compliment. My narcissistic compliment is he reminds me of myself. I'm just kidding. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. No, in all seriousness, really intelligent, great YouTube channel. You should check it out. All right. What were we saying? Oh yeah. Before we got on with that, Elon Musk is yelling at Trump, which is very funny. All right, be right back.
They're going to be struggling for the better part of this evening, maybe into tomorrow morning or later.
What does Senator Tillis, his announcement that he won't seek re-election, what does that tell you?
What it tells me is that any Republican who stands up to Donald Trump will be hit by this torrent of vitriol and vehement threats and intimidation. And so Donald Trump is running this show. He is betraying not only his own promises, but the values and promises that Republicans have made to their constituents. And what Tillis's decision tells me is their positions in many ways have become unsustainable, both politically and morally.
How does it feel to be aligned with Elon Musk tonight, who also opposes this bill? And what difference do you think that his speaking out today will make?
Well, needless to say, Elon Musk and I are not coordinating our public positions, but I think he has it right. And the numbers tell the story, not only the debt that will balloon and the real suffering that people will see in their everyday lives, kids who break their arms on playgrounds, or women who find a lump in their breast and they go to the emergency room, they're uncovered, seniors who are kicked out of nursing homes. The pain is undeniable, and Elon Musk may not feel or see that pain, but top line, he knows the financial markets are going to begin reacting to the levels of debt that will be generated. The economy is at risk. The ramifications and ripple effects throughout the economy will be terrible. And I will just say one more thing, John. You know, the Republicans have corrupted this democratic process. They have, in effect, relied on an accounting trick. It is called baseline budgeting, and the baseline current policy that enables them to disguise a part of the effect on national debt. So this reliance on accounting tricks, on corrupting the reconciliation process, which was designed only for budgeting, they're adding all kinds of policy restrictions, I think will be seen by the American people as fundamentally destructive of the democratic process.
Well, we will see, certainly, maybe see what happens in the Senate sometime tonight. Senator Blumenthal, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, chat. Should have told him to take off his hat. Oh, damn, I forgot to bully him. Should have bullied. Okay,
House members are rushing to return to the Capitol to vote on what many are calling the big, ugly budget bill by President Trump's July 4th deadline after it passed the Senate, just barely eked by on Tuesday. The Senate reconciliation bill includes tax cuts for the rich while increasing barriers for millions to access to Medicaid and food assistance. It also deregulates the AI and crypto industries and subsidies for renewable energy, even imposes new taxes on solar and wind farms. The bill includes a historic increase in funds to ramp up Trump's mass detention and deportation efforts, which we'll talk about next. Vice President J.D. Vance was needed to cast the tie-breaking vote after hours of negotiations with 3 Republicans joining all Democrats in voting no. Senators Tom Tilson, Rand Paul, and Susan Collins. The legislation passed after a compromise was worked out with Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, despite her concerns it slashes social safety net.
I don't know why. I just feel like the social safety net is going to get another Freedom Caucus defense. Like, Republicans like to talk a big game. They don't really want to cut this shit. I mean, if they actually do it, it would be fucking crazy. And Donald Trump is a complete moron.
Programs around the country. On Tuesday, Democratic Congressmember Jim McGovern lambasted Murkowski for voting yes despite her concerns.
And listen to this quote from Senator Murkowski, who just caved and voted for this bill. And you got to love this. She said, quote, "My hope is that the House is going to look at this and recognize that we're not there yet," end quote. I mean, my question to her is, if you really believe that, then why the hell did you vote for this bill? It doesn't make any sense. It's a dereliction of your duty as a United States Senator and as a representative for the people in Alaska. I mean, when was the last time this current House of Representatives has fixed or solved anything? I mean, where have you been, Senator Murkowski? This Republican House is dysfunction on steroids. And let me say to my Republican friends, I understand that the Senate just jammed you, but you don't have to be complicit. I get it. I know the Republican leadership and Trump don't want scrutiny. They don't want the American people to understand what's really happening here. This bill is a middle finger to millions of Americans. It isn't just a bad bill, it is the most dangerous piece of legislation in modern history. Dangerous because of the very real damage it will do to real people, sick people, hungry kids, families just scraping by. If this is Republicans' top legislative priority this Congress, it tells us everything about where your values lie. And it's not with working families, not with struggling communities, but with mega corporations, billionaires, and Donald Trump.
That's Massachusetts Democratic Congressmember Jim McGovern. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska responded to criticism of her vote in favor of Trump's budget bill during an interview with NBC News' Ryan Nobles, who caught up with her in the hallway.
Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh, my God.
That's what Senator Paul said.
Question was easy. Senator, we've got the...
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is
criticism.
Senator Paul said.
Ryan Noble.
Hold on, I gotta watch this again.
Hallway.
Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh, my God.
That's what Senator Paul said.
My question was easy. Senator, we've got the
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska. And I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. When people suggest that federal dollars go to one of our 50 states in a, quote, bailout, I find that offensive. I advocated for my state's interests. I will continue to do that, and I will make no excuses for doing that. Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not
If you
going
had
to
voted against it, it would not have passed. So you would have taken care of Alaskans. So by voting for it, you fucked over everyone else. That's offensive.
to be advantaged by this bill.
But I know,
don't like that.
I know that in many parts of the country, there are many Americans who will not be advantaged by this bill, the Alaska senator said. For more, we're joined by Ezra Levin, co-founder and co-executive director of Indivisible, a grassroots movement with over 1 million participants and counting. They're calling on voters to
Chat, tomorrow we're going to talk about the Philly sanitation strike and why centrist Democrats continue to be the biggest biggest source of dysfunction in cities. Jesus fucking Christ, they're so stupid.
contact lawmakers to oppose the bill as it goes back to the House. So, Ezra, this is not done. The Senate required J.D. Vance, the vice president, to cast the tie-breaking vote, and now it goes back to the House. Can you talk about what's at stake here and Indivisible's strategy in dealing with the House, both Republicans and Democrats?
I mean, what's at stake is the worst bill in modern American history passing.
All right, chat. Listen, the bill's really important, but something even more important has happened. Creator Clash. Creator Clash as a big announcement that I did not see. The closest thing she'll ever get to an org is an orgy.
She's never getting signed.
She's orgless.
Pathetic. No org.
Moving to LA June 1st. Offline TK. Offline TV. OTK. Crossing out. She crossed out Asmongold's face. and Tectone.
You know what you have to do.
This is actually not happening in Tampa, but she's too lazy to change it.
Oh no. Not like this. Oh.
Oh man, that's pretty good, chat. That's talent right there. Can't wait. Creator Clash. Can't wait. What are we gonna do without the support of people like Tectone and Asmongold? I don't know what will be. Well, it'll be so tough without Ethan Klein and Destiny support. Oh, What will we do? The least cool people on the internet. The most bitchless people on the internet. Twice divorced. Deadbeats. What are we going to do? All right, back to politics.
The largest transfer of wealth from working class and lower income Americans to the rich. A massive cut to Medicaid, a massive cut to SNAP, historically massive, and funding a mass deportation force in this country at the levels of the Russian military. They want to take what they're doing in LA and move that show on the road, do it in Austin, do it in Seattle, do it in Chicago, do it in New York. That's what's at stake right now. And the good news is it's not a done deal. As you said, they passed it by the skin of their teeth in the Senate. It took J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote. And now they can lose up to 3 votes in the House, just 3 votes. If they lose 4 votes in the House, it's done. And right now, I can tell you, they don't have the votes. They do not have the votes right now. The House leadership is doing their best to whip those votes, to try to convince them to come over, but they don't have it yet. So our strategy right now is very, very simple. We need as many people as possible today, this morning, calling in to their representatives. If you've got a Democratic representative, great. Call them up, thank them for fighting hard, tell them that you are watching and that you're cheering them on. If you've got a Republican representative, congratulations. You have such a large amount of power right now because your representative might be the vote that kills or delays this bill. It is very important. If you've never called your member of Congress, today is the day to do it. If you have called your member of Congress before, great. Get in touch with family members, colleagues, friends, neighbors. Tell them this is the day they need to get outside their comfort zone a bit and call their member of Congress. And if you've already done that and you're feeling a little bolder, get a few friends together and go to your local member of Congress's district office and show up and in a friendly way, ask them to represent you. That's the strategy. We've got 26 targets of House Republicans. We need 4 of them on our side today.
And Ezra, could you talk about some of those targets of House Republicans? Who are the key figures that are more likely to vote no on this bill?
So there are 2 types of House Republicans who are possibly going to vote no on this bill. The most right-wing members of the Republican caucus, the folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who don't think this bill goes far enough, would like bigger deportation forces, would like bigger cuts to Medicaid, would like bigger tax cuts for billionaires. That's one segment of the caucus. The other segment of the caucus are the folks who are in vulnerable districts.
All right, we have some vote going on right now. Hold on. Let me see what's.
Are worried that they might lose their reelection because this bill is one of the most
yielded for that purpose, and therefore the unanimous consent request cannot be entertained. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Fletcher, for the purpose of a unanimous consent request.
Gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to amend the rule to make an order the amendment at the desk that protects against any cuts to Medicaid and SNAP.
The gentlelady from North Carolina has not yielded for that purpose, and therefore the unanimous consent request cannot be entertained. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Tonko, for the purpose of a unanimous consent request.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to amend the rule to make an order the amendment at the desk that protects against any cuts to Medicaid and SNAP.
The gentlelady from North Carolina has not yielded for that purpose, and therefore the unanimous consent request cannot be entertained. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I am proud.
They're literally just doing nonstop annoying objections to try to stall the bill.
Amend the rule to make an order the amendment at the desk that protects against any cuts to Medicaid and SNAP.
The gentlelady from North Carolina has not yielded for that purpose, and therefore the unanimous consent request cannot be entertained. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, parliamentary inquiry.
Gentleman, state is inquiry.
Does one Republican member have the power to block an amendment to protect Medicaid and SNAP?
The manager of the pending resolution would have to yield for any such amendment.
Well, that kind of seems like a silly rule. But anyway, Mr. Speaker, I yield to the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Gillen, for the purpose of unanimous consent request.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to amend the rule to make an order the amendment at the desk that protects against any cuts to Medicaid and to SNAP.
Gentlelady from North Carolina has not yielded for that purpose, and therefore the unanimous consent request cannot be entertained. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Speaker, I yield to the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. Morrison, for the purpose of a unanimous consent request.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous.
So it looks like every single Democrat is going to object. Basically, they're going to go and they're going to try to do an amendment, and then he's going to say you can't offer an amendment. And they're just going to all do it, every single one of them.
But ultimately, it's gridlock. Congress just doesn't move forward. The most recent poll that I saw found that only 8% of the American public knew that there were Medicaid cuts in this bill. Medicaid cuts are deeply unpopular. They've got a 15% approval rating in the deepest red districts in this country. We're talking in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. Medicaid cuts poll at 15%. And yet, less than 10% of the public even knows that Congress is proposing the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. What I would recommend to folks, if you've never engaged with your member of Congress, if you've kind of checked out, you don't think you have a role here, I would encourage you, don't hold back now. You don't have to be an expert in this bill. You don't have to be an expert in Pell Grants or in Medicaid or in tax policy. That's not where your legitimacy comes from. Your legitimacy comes from the fact that you are a constituent. And your vote counts as much as the highest paid lobbyist in Washington, D.C. And if you happen to live in a Republican district right now, it counts for even more. So don't let if you haven't read the 1,000-page bill, that's okay. You have valid opinions, and you should express them now because they could actually do so good.
Let me ask you something, Ezra. At the same time that this bill passed, we got the confirmation that Zohran Mamdani won, this huge upset win. He won by 12 points over the former governor of New York. I mean, there was a point where Zohran Mamdani had 1% name recognition. Of course, Andrew Cuomo was extremely well known, was 40 points ahead. The whole campaign was about affordability, many of the issues that are being addressed in this bill. In fact, Zohran Mamdani won more votes than U.S. senators in 27 states, including the Senate Majority Leader. Is this a warning to everyone in the House right now around this bill?
Look, Mamdani ran an incredible campaign, and he was up against a bully and an abuser and a tool of a broken establishment. And so it's no surprise to me that he was catapulted not just to win by the skin of his teeth, but he trounced him. He really blew Cuomo out of the water, and that is great to see. I think what it highlights is a couple of things. One, the voters want people to help solve their basic problems. They want to lower the cost of rent. They want to lower the cost of childcare. They want to lower the cost of transportation. That's what government should do. The government should make it easier for people to live their lives. And that's what Mamdani is actually
oh, by the way, chat, he doubled the 18 to 24-year-old vote. There was an edit to the poll about youth turnout, but it showed that it was actually millennials that were the ones that had the biggest spikes. 18 to 24-year-olds doubled, but it was the older Gen Z and young millennials that had the biggest spike. It wasn't quite as good with the 18 to 24-year-olds.
Promising. Now, I think he won in part because of that proactive vision, but he was winning in a Democratic primary against a Democratic establishment that couldn't be further from rank and file Democrats right now. You don't have to be the leftmost member of the Democratic Party to think the folks currently in charge have failed us and we need a new vision. And I think both of those things fed into Mamdani's historic win here. And I think if the Democratic establishment is smart right now, they would be rallying around him as the primary winner, because this is not the last contentious primary this cycle. We're going to see contentious primaries in mayoral and congressional elections for the next year or so. And if the Democrats fail to rally around Mamdani because of some concerns about his progressive program, you might see a lot of progressives who maybe they don't win their primaries refuse to rally around the Democratic establishment candidate. So I think for the good of the party and personally for the good of the agenda that Mamdani is pushing forward, I think it's very important that Democrats close ranks around him to go.
So, Chad, Indivisible is like a center-left grassroots organization of the Democratic Party. I would consider them kind of generically progressive, but very oriented toward the party. If the leader is saying this, that's a sign that the knees are bending.
Go forward to a big win.
Measure 11, we want to thank you for being with us, co-founder and co-executive director of Indivisible, a grassroots movement with over 1 million participants and counting. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience...
All right, everybody. I'm going to call it there. Thanks so much for all the support today. The sub goal broke. I don't know why, but we smashed our sub goal. So thank you all for all the support. It really does mean a lot. We ended at 11,217 paying members. That's crazy. Thank you for all the support. Dr. Brain Slug, Hammond Fist. You guys are the best. Of course, Open Presents. Everybody else who gifted. Thank you, Berkeley Pit Power Swimmer, for the biddies. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Who am I going to send you over to? I'm going to send y'all over to the Brain Domain. One of the most underrated streamers on Twitch. Mental health professional. Are you struggling with something? There is no better person on the entire internet to talk to than Joshua. Chillest vibes, nicest guy. I think he just recently got engaged to Casey Tron. Super cool, super tall. Super funny, super thoughtful. We love him. I'm going to send you guys, gals, non-binary pals over to Joshua for the relaxation and tell him that the vibes are good for a change. So say hi to Joshua for me. I'll see you all tomorrow. Oh, chat, don't forget, make sure you go check out the new video, Silence Doomer, that was just put out on the YouTube. Silence Doomer. All right, everybody, stay safe out there. Solidarity forever, my friends, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Peace. Free Palestine.